So yeah, Gordon Ramsay, look at me now.
Oh, mate, do you want to talk about that?
That could be you in jail for the rest of your life off the back of that. And for what? One move.
We're gonna walk down to Electric Avenue.
Hey, you became big in other ways.
You pretty much know that they're telling you you're gonna die.
You know, I was abused as a child, but I try not to dwell on that as a horrible memory. mate, it's too scary a thought for them to do something different.
What are you doing with your life that you have to pay so much attention to someone else's life?
Thank you.
Imagine living the best time of your life without a care in the world. Then all of a sudden, an unexpected street attack becomes a life-threatening situation. You're ambulanced to the hospital and you're told you'll be lucky to see you the next morning. Now imagine 20 years plus later and you're still here telling the story when you're actually supposed to be dead. That night literally changed the life of my guest today, who went on to do incredible things. And I, for one, want to hear his story, start to finish. So without further ado, on the sofa today is the guy that not only cheated death, but pretty much laughed in his face. The multi-talent that is Jordan Grant.
How you doing, Blade?
I'm good, bro.
Yeah,
how are you?
Bless up, man. All good, thank you. All good.
As I always say, first things first, thanks for making the journey and
pleasure.
coming down. As I've got to know you more and more, I've got intrigued by some of the stories you've been telling me. And I just feel like the people really need to hear this.
Okay.
It's up to you where you want to start, but I personally think that you need to start at the part where you're growing up in wartime wasteland. Do you know what I mean? Because that, I think, is one of the things that shapes us.
Yeah.
So it's your call.
Yeah, different times then, times like never seen again now, really. Just the landscape that we had, the playground that we had in front of us. I was raised in West London, single parent family. Dad didn't really have too much to do with the family. He was sort of in and out, running around with other women and whatnot. Yeah. My mum took on the role of dad as well and did a fine job. I wouldn't say we ever come from any major riches or whatnot, but in terms of just sort of direction, my mum always had that. She always had a goal. She definitely instilled that in me from very early on. I remember poignantly the day where she said, you know, you're never going to be a partner to me now, to my dad. But at the same time, if you can't even be there for your kids when you say you're going to be, even if it's just once a year, then it's best you're not here. From that, I've always lived my life in the sense of not feeling without. I know a lot of people end up, you know, blaming all sorts on not having a present father or whatnot, but I just found that, you know, it was better without him. Mum was strong. She had her shit together and she wasn't ever going to let poverty be anything to hold us back. So she always focused on the future.
With the rubble and everything that was going on, how did this, I'm really curious because like I come from a background where I've seen that kind of stuff. And I know that really shaped the beginnings of who I was to who I became.
Right.
So I'm sure that has
I just remember, you know, the fact is, as most Londoners of my kind of era and before know, you know, London took a long time to shape up after the war. There were different stages of deconstruction and so on. So we did have, you know, how do I put it? The colours, the just sort of breakdown of everything around you was very present in our colour palette at the time, you know. The world felt a much freer place, possibly because of our youth, but also just because of the amount of freedom. We didn't have cameras on us like we do now. That's a big part of stuff. And it always just shaped the sort of the creativity in me. I always just wondered what could be done, you know. Always had limitless amount of options with stuff. Kids were a lot more creative then as well.
It always seems to go back to that. We have nothing, so we have to create everything.
Yeah,
know?
Definitely so.
So how much do you think that played a role in your life?
Massively so. I was quite a methodical child. I was, you know, a very black and white thinker in lots of ways. But at the same time, my mum would always encourage us to think outwardly and to see stuff from the other side. I remember one poignant memory. One thing that I think shaped me as a child as well, I've mentioned this to you previously, is when I was at the marketplace as a kid. And I saw this young kid, look kind of feral, getting dragged by a market seller into the back of the cinema. He'd obviously been caught stealing or something like that. But I always, for the rest of my life, wondered what happened to that child.
Oh, you never seen him since?
No. And again, you know, that sort of, that vibe carried on even into our programming and so on. The directors and television shows that we had were almost a lot more real. You remember the sort of Alan Clark era of Scum and, you know, Made in Britain earlier on, and that wasn't Alan Clark, but so on. We used to have kids' TV shows that would show kids getting kidnapped in toilets.
Graphic.
And getting put in car boots and so on. And lots of the format of programming then was very much real life as well. Like even Grange Hill. Grange Hill felt like, again, that was Phil Redmond. So at the time, he was kind of like an upcoming Alan Clark. The drama was in the real life. So many people from my era and before have movie-like stories to them. Some things that I think youth nowadays maybe aren't as...
Do you know what I find
aren't able to get as much access to.
I mean, do you know what I find entertaining is this whole new terminology of reality TV where nothing is real. Everything is just put on for cameras and for show.
Reality was then, you know. I always say if you had an issue with someone, you're generally a lot more likely to come across them or have to deal with them directly. There's always the joke nowadays that if you were younger, you had to have mad social skills. You couldn't just call up your friend on their mobile phone or anything like that. You literally got to speak to their parents and make sure their parents think you're good enough to hang about with their kid. So it's almost like an interview process to speak to your friend or a girl or anything like that beforehand. Now, not the case.
What other defining things happened in your youth?
Right, so me knocking my dad, but funnily enough, one of the few occurrences that happened when he did come back, he was a music producer. Got a big lineage of family musical history. My dad was a producer. He worked alongside my uncle.
Don't tell anyone the other bit yet.
Yeah, all right. I don't know which other bit. There's lots of other bits. But anyway, Dad was an up-and-coming music producer. He was doing lots of bits over in Germany as well. That's probably why I've got a lot of half-brothers and sisters from Germany now as well.
Oh, Jesus.
But he produced a record with Jerry Brown and Dana, both big Irish musicians, Northern Irish musicians. There was the war going on in Northern Ireland in '88. He produced a song to help push forward the peace process. And yeah, basically he ended up, I think, producer on the music video shoot as well. One of the few things that I ended up doing with him was traveling over to Northern Ireland and getting to experience a real life music video shoot.
Is that your first?
First ever. I was about 5 or 6 years old. I think first time on a plane. And yeah, first time because my dad wasn't too present during that shoot either. My first experience having to be a little bit independent as well. I kind of got left in, there were lots of students because these kind of big Band-Aid style, oh yeah, if anyone wants to check it out, it's called Harmony by Jerry Brown and Dana. Yeah, basically students were there, they were involved in one of these things, singing on the Giant's Causeway and so on. They ended up by default kind of becoming my babysitters for the weekend. So already from that point, I was kind of flexing my social skills. I remember the helicopter going up and then the artist going off onto a cliff on the Giant's Causeway, then radioing through and doing circular shots around the artist and so on. All stuff nowadays that could be achieved with a drone, funnily enough, but big old production. So yeah, that was my first experience and it was something I wanted to know more about, you know, the lights, the glitz, the glam, but then also the stuff that happens behind the camera as well in prep. They got Pat Jennings in that music video as well, and I think there's a part where he kicked the ball over the wall and he was demonstrating the fact that something as simple as playing a ball game could get your ball lost and you wouldn't be able to get it back because it was on the other side. And in this video, the light, you know, the door swung open and a heavenly light came out and then the kids joined hands together and started singing. And yeah, from there on, I think I don't think that song single-handedly stopped all the violence in Ireland.
But what it did for you was you witnessed a massive production.
Yeah.
That basically put you on your path.
Yeah, definitely so.
You told me a little story about a long-distance race.
Right, so I'd ended up in my youth, I was in a bit of a school of hard knocks. The system in the 80s was different, you know, racism then, as soon as you had any tinge of brown to your skin, you were automatically qualified as not relevant or not, you know, ready to achieve. There was a lot holding you back from there. So, yeah, a lot of people watching nowadays might say, oh, you know, mixed race is great. I used to babysit a kid a few years ago who was mixed race. He had a whole clan of mixed race friends. It's like, shit, man, there were 2 of us when I was at school. But no, the whole school construct, even from reception, year 1, year 2, year 3, seemed to be set very much aside to bring anyone of colour down and push a message of superiority for anyone light-skinned or light in colour. And so with that whole school scenario, but also coming from what I felt was quite a strong, value-laden sort of background with my family, I still ended up getting in non-stop trouble, always getting the blame. As long as there was a lighter kid in front of me who was shouting, then I would be the one that got the blame. My mum developed a sort of technique to stop me from hitting back. You know, nowadays I would recommend anyone gets hit, you hit them back. But in that era, to stop me getting into trouble, yeah, just don't hit back. And I remember I found that so hard. And there were 3 occasions where I told her, you know, I tried really hard, but And I didn't hit back, and she rewarded me, ironically enough, with a skateboard. Ironically, because years later I went on to actually inline skating. But yeah, she said, you can get anything you want from Argus, well done for not hitting back. But anyway, just to twist up, I moved on to a school that she'd been wanting to get me into, slightly softer side of things. And there was very early on in my time there was a school race. I'd never really run before or anything like that. And I remember having these beat up pair of Reeboks. Didn't have much money in the family at the time, and I got this pair of Reeboks from a car boot sale. You know, the old Hexalite ones with half the sole missing and hexagons of something see-through on the bottom.
Yeah.
Felt well techers. And yeah, I basically had these shoes, and you know shoes could make you run faster in your youth. So yeah, anyway, I started pushing on with this race, and I remember about halfway through, it was a long distance one, and about halfway through, my sock started coming through a hole in the front. Shoe was crumbling under my foot, but I was still so proud of these shoes. Anyway, pelted on and beat the main guy that had been running at school for a little while. And I remember thinking, I didn't want to run that race. I didn't want to be at the front. I didn't have any enjoyment in it. But just from winning that race and pushing on, pushing past the pain barrier, I think when I look back, that says a lot about my endurance in life. I know everyone's run a race at some point or another, but I just remember I was watching my shoes crumble in front of me, my sock coming out, and I was still trying to push for number one, and I did. And yeah, that is something I hold on to a little bit. It's only a minor story, but it's another character shaped one, you know. So
You know what I find interesting about that is basically because when you're in a school and there's predominantly white kids and whatever, right? And then you see the black guy winning all the races and the mixed race guy winning the races and being the better footballer and all that. It kind of intimidates the white guys a little bit.
yeah, adds to that message.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? And that then leads me to a message. You said the word message. So there was a message written on a wall at one point that basically, in some ways, made it entertaining for you because the spelling wasn't even correct.
In my story, Blade, I'm very impressed, very impressed. Yeah, so funny enough, you tie that up. I wouldn't have remembered that without you mentioning. Every day I walked to that first school, so before the race school, the School of Hard Knocks, I remember every morning there was one particular wall just close to the school and it said, "Niggers go home." And I held on to that massively at the time. That someone else could be opposed to you just because of your colour. They hadn't even spelt niggers wrong either, it spelt Nigers.
But what does that say though? It's like, look at the capacity of the people you're dealing with.
Yeah,
like,
most definitely.
you know what I mean?
Also the fear, you know?
And I have this conversation quite often with friends of mine when we discuss race and stuff like that. And we always kind of ask, is it because people are afraid that you're going to be taking their women, their jobs, do you get what I'm saying?
I think it's fear of the unknown. Fear of the unknown.
And what is the unknown?
The unknown.
Yeah, but
Tell me, that's your track, man.
Hey, look.
I genuinely don't know. Like, the unknown, that scares everyone. People, even in their own personal lives, they're scared of changing up job. It's because they came with an already established flavour and culture and something that wasn't shaped on money, something that you couldn't buy.
Yeah. You know, that name Grant, there's a kind of a big attachment to the name.
Yeah.
You want to tell us?
My uncle, the famed reggae musician, Eddie Grant.
We're gonna walk down to Electric Avenue.
But you know, that's the standard one that comes up. There's so many other songs that were deeper and more heartfelt, songs that really made change, you know. Like Give Me Hope, Joanna, as an example, you know. Apartheid tail end going on in South Africa, and, you know, I know there's only so much that music can do, but really it does invigorate souls and spirits.
Why did you take the path of music, knowing that Eddie Grant was...
Well, my dad wasn't around, you know, that side of the family. Funnily enough, it was actually my mum later on in my life that made that connection with family. Dad wasn't around to do that. So, you know, although Eddie and his studios were based in North London at the time of my youth, there wasn't so much of that side of connection. Eddie's also, you know, he's an independent solo businessman. He was the first black person to own his own recording studio, not his own recording, his own record label.
Explain that, like, because the depth of that is so important.
Yeah, you imagine, well, even in the 70s and 80s, having to go and produce your own stuff, you're going to have to generally pay, you know, an average white man to do that. You know, this is a guy that not only took his own talent and put it up there, but someone that took others and helped them at a slightly, a much more, what's the word? He wasn't taking a piss, you know. He worked with other artists that he valued and rated and helped them to see theirs.
And it didn't matter about colour as well?
No, not at all. He was in a group, you know, Baby Come Back, the Equals. They were called the Equals because they were black and white members. Again, I think another first of their kind. He was a revolutionary in that sense. But My and Eddie's connection was never, you know, massively close. We met him as kids. We've seen him throughout our life. But I think a big part of me and me trying to take step up career-wise was not to fall back on anyone else as well. I think Eddie's ethos was very much self-sufficient, not necessarily giving anyone a route in just because of family or whatnot. I rate that. But at the same time, I do myself the same duty as well, is that I don't need to hang around with anyone just for the sake of a name or a drag through. Like,
Especially if you've kind of grown up with the attitude that, you know, you're self-reliant, you're going to be self-reliant.
yeah, definitely.
Because
So.
that's the sense I get from you, that you believe in yourself enough to push everything forward and make shit happen.
Mate, I was very aware as a kid of coming from a single parent family. A lot of the kids around me in my first school were doing so as well. But I found as I've grown up, a lot of people blame that on their lack of achievement or their problems in life. And the thing is that, you know, I repeat, you know, we didn't come from a particularly wealthy background in terms of money, but in terms of the value of experience and the love that was shown in my household. My mum gave me both sides, you know. I wouldn't ever say I grew up soft or anything like that. My mum's, you know, taught me to stand up for myself, and I think by having, you know, an extra person around, it might have actually devalued my experience. I take the negatives and try and repurpose them, man. I always try and take something positive from every experience, and I've done that from very early on in my life.
And you're still doing that to this day,
Yeah,
everything that you do.
no doubt.
So those values really set you up for the future in a way.
Yeah.
And obviously you went on to do some big things,
Yeah.
which we'll discuss shortly. But I want to find out about this inline skating thing that you were talking about and the sponsorships.
Right, okay.
And, yeah, so
Mid-80s, it's kind of neon coated. Everything was fancy. Adverts ruled, you know. Could stick a good advert on sell anything, really. Rollerblades dropped in 86, I think, so it's the first time they put straight lines of wheels on a skate. Well, this time of the century. And yeah, my mum bought me a pair. Don't think she ever thought anything of it, but from there I learnt to use them and just ran with it. We used to go to a roller disco, another thing that's only just coming back in life now. Roller disco.
Are you involved?
No.
So you
Yeah,
kinda
I got
sold
to the
out.
point. I got to the point very early on where skating around in circles wasn't going to do it anymore. You know, like, wow. No. I needed to add something to it as well. You know, and so yeah, I got my first pair of roller skates or rollerblades in 1987, 88, and just took it from there. Really, I think I'll finish up that side of the story a little bit later on.
Okay. So was there any other sporting activities that you were involved with?
I was always massively involved in sport. Off that running event when I was younger, got quite into long distance running, always massively into football and rugby. Never a football fan, really, if anyone supports Spurs. So yeah, you could qualify that as not a football fan. Yeah, sorry, I just filled the gap there, man. Yeah, just involved in every kind of sport. The one thing my mum would say about me in my youth is there was seldom a time where I was in the house. Again, another thing that kids don't really take full value and advantage of now. I know times have changed, but say tracking through to high school, when I used to go there, I used to be a bit of a bass player at one point as well. So I'd go to a school match on a Saturday morning on my bike with my fishing gear strapped over one side of me, my bass guitar held on the hand or on the handlebar, my football kit on my back, and then probably a tent or a sleeping bag on my back as well for the fishing. So once I went out on a Saturday morning, I'd go play my football, I'd cycle straight to my guitar instructor, do that, leave the guitar with him, and then cycle down to Gunnersbury Park with my tent and my fishing pack and then go stay there for the night.
So what do you think changed where kids kind of don't even see outside of their house anymore?
Comfortabilities, technology is led up to that point as well. You know, you imagine even in the 80s, the program was kind of starting with computer games and kids stuck to their screen for 48 hours.
Literally.
But I think what happened is there's then no opposition. You then get the projection of knife crime and danger out on the streets. We had lockdown, all that stuff that broke down social activities. And I think you are where we are now, which is parents not pushing their kids to go out because of the safety. Kids not wanting to go out because they can speak to their mates on a headset. In decades to come, it might end up that, you know, that creates some extra other skill. You know, for example, they say, I don't know if you know this, but apparently when humans evolved, chimps have a much better memory than us, for example. Chimps can remember longer sequences of numbers. And they say that as soon as humans learn to write, we've learned to commit our memory to something else. And therefore, we don't need to have a memory like we previously might have done. So maybe, you know, with these kids not interacting with each other directly, they might end up developing some, I don't know, psychokinesis or something like that, or something else, I don't know. Maybe they'll just get really good at making their own business plans and committing to themselves, but I don't see much good.
Yeah, I can't see it personally.
I'm just trying to look positively on it.
That's why I wanted to get you in here, because I could tell you the most negative thing right now, and you just find something positive about it. You know, and there's a lot of people in this world that I feel dwell on the negative so much, and because I just feel, in particular, with the way the world is now, I just feel like people are drawn to drama more.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that's healthy, personally.
It's an easy fix, isn't it? It's an adrenaline fix, the way I see it. You know, I get that as well, but I've just let it manifest in other ways, normally chucking myself off something on my skates or conquering something that I'm fearful of. You know, I didn't mention this to you in the pre-chat, but, you know, I was abused as a child. You know, there's shit that happened to me as a kid that I'll just touch on lightly, but my main point of raising that is that as much as we can say these things affect us in numerous ways, some told, some untold, some only to come out in years to come, but I try not to dwell on that as a horrible memory, you know. I'm not trying to virtue signal or whatnot, but my memory of that event, there was a family member that when we used to get left in their care, when my mum very seldom, you know, had time to herself or whatnot. So even as a 7-year-old kid with my younger sister, I always remember, you know, mum needs to get away. Mum needs to do her thing. She was so committed to us. And then the few times that she did let us out of her care was to go and stay at another family's house. And I had, not my granddad, but grandma's new partner, come a certain time of night when we were staying over there, he used to he used to come very quietly, sneak into the bedroom, past the bed that my sister was staying in, and then climb into my bed. And, you know, I won't expand on it, but he did the worst of the worst thing that you could do to a kid. And I can only say that it's because of the mum that I've got and the family backing that I've got that hasn't allowed me to take too much away from me with that instance. When I used to see him or sense him walking around that first bed, my first relief as a child was to think, at least he's not climbing into my sister's bed. And I think maybe, you know, I haven't analysed this too much, but maybe the fact that he passed my sister's bed to come to mine was enough settling in my head. I didn't tell my mum about that till I was 18 years old. And you can imagine, you know, oh, your mum's partner did this to me. She would have wanted to hear that so many years before.
But this is the problem with the world, right? Anyone who goes through those kind of traumas feels like it's embarrassment, it's whatever it is that they don't want to talk about it. Sometimes it's fear.
I wasn't embarrassed about that situation. I knew from everything that had been instilled for me as a kid, that was wrong and I needed to speak up about that.
So why didn't you speak up about it?
It was the horror that I thought might hit my mum with that. It wasn't her blaming me, it wasn't her not believing me, it was the horror that might hit her with that.
While this is all going on, your concern is for, like, okay, my sister's not getting it. I don't want my mom to kind of get caught up in the middle of it, so you took all the burden on yourself.
Yeah.
How has that affected the future?
I didn't sit on it and think of it. My mum, now we discuss it years later, and she says, you know, she feels terrible because me and my sister would say, oh, we don't want to go back there this weekend. And I think generally kids just want to be with their mum or their parents anyway. But to a degree, she sort of blames herself for not seeing the signs. And that's exactly what I was trying to avoid. You know, my mum was so hard-working towards us. There was no way that she didn't deserve some time to herself. She was never the kind to bring friends or men round the house or anything like that. Or mum couldn't have her own time, so let's just let her have her time. Yeah,
How old were you?
It broke her heart. I was 6 or 7 years old.
And you thought that far ahead to protect everybody else?
I was...
At the age of 6?
I don't know if it was because of that, but they often say that kids that have been abused in such a manner often become pleasers in life, you know, that you end up worrying about others or becoming a little bit overly empathetic or whatnot, sensitive in some ways. You know, maybe that is how it wrapped itself up and manifested it.
But then at what point in your life do you then start putting the guard up and just going, fuck everybody else, this is about me now?
That's taken me a long time. I think we'll come to that after, but there's another life sequence that actually changed that and taught me to be a bit more assertive and get more out of what I would need, not just want, but need out of situations.
I find that when people do discuss situations like this, it helps other people. Like, it gives other people the strength. In particular, if people have a personality that people are drawn to. I've had people calling me up and saying that this helped them and that helped them and whatever. So, you know, what have you got to say to anyone that's been through that, that hasn't spoken about it yet? And would you advise them to speak about it to someone? Would you advise them to keep it locked up?
I don't know the exact sort of binary process that I'd recommend to most people, but I would say firstly, be open with yourself about it. I for years didn't tell myself that that was anything. I knew it was wrong deep down. I wasn't apologizing for him by any means. I was thinking there'd be a point where he died and it would just be all right. And now he's gone, you know, so it's all right. But then I heard about other kids that he'd been doing that to as well. And they had a mum and a dad, and they were from the same community as him. The advice I would give is be open and honest with yourself about stuff. Know when stuff is wrong. Discuss it when you feel comfortable. There's a reason why people hold things to themselves. But at the same time, don't protect anyone. You've got no reason to protect anyone. And, you know, it sounds like I'm talking directly to maybe someone that might not see this show, someone slightly younger. But, you know, speak up. There's no damage that you can do, you know, other than the damage that's already been created by that person. It's not your fault, so.
Do you feel by not speaking about it, you're doing more damage to yourself?
I didn't speak about it for years. And I don't think, you know, unless I'm really hiding or covering over something, I don't think there's much more that I can learn from that situation other than to spot signs with anyone that is under my care or protection.
If you see somebody that may be going through that, but you don't know about it.
How would you know, Blake?
But that's what I'm asking.
Wouldn't know
would you be able to clock it?
I wouldn't know how to know. My mum's a very astute person. She didn't pick up on any of this. My mum always told me to talk about stuff with her. We had a very open family bond and line of communication. That's why I can't really explain it, because it maybe hurt me but in so many ways deep down that it's just shaped the character I am, and there's not going to be any change in that. But I'm quite happy and confident with the person I am now. So thank you. One thing I will say is I know now, later in my life, the amount of people that something like this shapes. So, you know, there's a little stat to that something like 1 in 4 or maybe even 2 in 4 kids or older people then later in their life have been sexually abused in some way or another. I don't think I could probably count on my hands less friends that have been abused at some point in their life than have. And it's now I've found my tribe. We don't talk about that stuff. You know, it doesn't help make things more cathartic, but just being around like-minded souls, it makes you a little bit more tolerant of certain people as well, especially when you know there's a high likelihood that they've been through something similar at some point or another. I grew up with, my mum worked in social care, so I think that's where a lot of my being and understanding of stuff has come from. Some of my friends were from children's homes around the corner, you know, that very early on displayed certain behaviours. Fuck, they could have been sexually abused, physically abused, just not loved at all, you know, dumped at birth. I always just saw what I had as sort of still advantageous and able to hopefully impart some stability. I think that's why my mum was always persistent with bringing people around who maybe didn't have it as good or as stable, you know, just to show them another walk of life. And even to this day, with my mum having worked in children's homes years ago, up into my late youth when I moved out, even nowadays, mum has random knocks at the door at 10 or 11 at night, only till she moved house, where there'd be some dishevelled 40 or 50-year-old man turn up at the door saying, "Ange, you're the only person that, you know, I could turn to." And it was someone that was a kid at 13 years old that was in her children's home. So that shows how much influence you can have on a person just by listening to their story and trying to help them along the way. You know, 40 years later or 35 years later, these people still remembered my mum as the one solo person.
You used the word like-minded, being around like-minded people. So I guess this is a good point to maybe change the subject and talk about your entrance into hip-hop.
Right,
your first turntable and so on.
So, high school. I've ended up going to a high school quite far out of the way. I didn't go to the standard one that everyone from my school filtered through to, for better or worse. Again, on my mum's insistence of just having something a little bit more strong, something that kept me focused. I went to a boys' school. People go, ha, 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 ha. Not at all, man. We were in a triangle of girls' schools. It was great. So come lunchtime or come after. I even adapted my bus route to go check girls on the way home, man. So no, don't watch that about boys' school. But I went to a school that was out of the way. Even kids from year 5 and 6 that had fed into that school, you've got a different vibe when you come from a different borough. I was always quite, I don't know about this lot, man. And I think they felt the same about me. So my bonds in school were never massive. I've studied, I pushed on hard. I got the knocks of boffing and that, and I think it scared people as well. Again, another brown guy just being a little bit sort of switched on, you know, in tune with his education. That could have flipped into bullying or teasing or whatever, but then I was also very sporty. I also had quite a lot of prowess and strength in that sense as well. So people just didn't know where to place me. When it came to out of school, I went off and did my own thing. I didn't hang about with school folk or whatnot. But one thing that definitely stuck is come year 9, year 10, house and garage. We were all starting to go to our youth raves, under 18s ones, education in dance, if everyone remembers that, or Rhythm Nation. And it was our first experience of real rave culture or club culture. The tunes were wicked, man. Garage really inspired me. So although, you know, hip hop was part of me and I'd been listening to for years, garage was what the flavour of the time was, really. To put it into perspective, I think Ready to Die had just come out about the same time, Biggie's album, a couple of others of that sort of, that ilk. But anyway, garage was the one, and my next quest was to get a set of turntables. I had to get involved in this in some way. I wasn't a very good dancer at the time, and that was exhausting itself, so now I wanted to go and play. We had Cage Records just around the corner from us, which is an iconic record store, Chigwell Place. And yeah, basically got my first pair of Sound Lab record turntables, started buying weekly vinyl. That's another thing. I don't know how we'd afford to do that nowadays. £6-7 a record. What's that now? £10, £11?
It's ridiculous
for a single.
Do you remember the first record you bought?
Buddy X 99. Nana Cherry reworking by the Dream Team. Yeah, one of those, or Why Tribe, Enough Is Enough. Yeah, I was constantly on that. I bought so much shit as well. Cage Records, or any good record dealer, was always on point of, yeah, we've only got 10 of these, latest press, do you want this? Oh, what's it called? Oh, it's Pikachu. It makes the noise of Pikachu at the last bar, on the last eighth every time. Oh, great, yeah, how much? £7. So much crap, man. Anyway, so yeah, I massively wanted to get stuck into turntablism. Garage was the way forward, and that was one bit of influence that I took from those schoolmates. Yeah, started moving into hip hop a little bit, decided after sort of that youth rave era that no, hip hop was something a little bit more centered. Tie back into the rollerblading. So at this point, my skating has excelled. There's one kid at school that I've got common ground with skating. We go to school, back to school every weekend. We're skating metal benches. For those that don't know, you've got an edge on your shoe where you can grind and slide. They're also built tougher so you can jump off stuff. They won't just snap under your feet. And so, yeah, alongside this one friend that I was regularly going fishing with, we also had rollerblades together. We'd skate everywhere. Been going solid at it, aggressive skating since I was about 13 or 14 years old. Back then, you didn't have the skates that were actually made for it. You had to kind of bodge them together and make them tougher. So it was screwing grind plates on or screwing extra bits of plastic on so that you had sliding space. And in that time, hip-hop became a massive feature of my life. You had a series of skate videos called VG, Video Groove. Big up Dave Payne, massive influence in my life. And VG was a California-based sort of collective that basically used to make skate videos. Again, skating had a rock element. Back then, you were kind of either a rock skate, what they deemed a rock skater, or a hip-hop skater, and I was definitely a hip-hop skater. VG used to have these amazing soundtracks. I even heard about people like Herbalizer. I heard about the Herbalizer of an American, yeah, sorry, I didn't say that, VG. Probably going to be a lot of royalties backdated now. But yeah, it's where I heard about lots of sort of, you know, upcoming hip hop groups at the time as well and outfits. And it was just for me. That set it off. Hip hop was something you tuned into. It hyped you up. It made you try harder. It was a healthy era of music. You know, it was before all this, I won't call it, I've just called it nonsense by saying that, but it was a lot more centered. There was a lot more hype to it. Boom bap was banging, and there's not many music or not many genres that you can literally bang on in the morning and just, it gets you into the colour scheme of that music, you know? I don't know if house heads do that when they, or dance, or EDM people.
You know, music speaks.
Do they just put on no lyrics?
You know, talking about hip hop, you obviously had a hand in graffiti as well. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Right, so we had a crew at the time, Ealing Skate Crew, ESK, the original ESK. And yeah, we used to come up, sort of house parties. There's quite a few affluent guys in the crew. You know how it goes. Someone's got a slightly bigger house and a mum that doesn't care about things so much. And I've just gone away for the weekend. I've left you and the dog. And so, yeah, it sort of coincided with a lot of our crew first getting our first sound labs. And I can't remember the other name. Oh yeah, Newmark DJ in a box. A few of our friends had come up getting those set up, and then we had house parties. All these different schools, because we were all in different high schools, all sort of came together, and there was this just mad vibe at the time. You know, Graff was big in that area anyway. It was in its heyday, especially in West London as well. It was a good look. And there was one guy from our crew that was particularly into it. He wasn't a skater, so this was his angle on things. And he never really imparted any style on me or anything like that. He wasn't really practicing it like that, but he loved the vandalistic side. And so I used to jump out with him occasionally. At that point, I'm taking a video camera out with me everywhere. So again, to tie back into stories from my youth, one thing I found interesting massively was anytime we had a family event or whatnot, my granddad always had a video camera for stuff. You know, one of those old, and he was a sensible man, but once in a while he'd see the passion in my eyes and he'd pass it to me for me to use, you know, early influence. And so I've held on to that thought and the skating and the hip hop all the way through. At this point, turntables, hip hop, parties, skating, video camera comes out, you know, all these things are kind of melding. We were literally living a skate lifestyle, which was one and one with hip hop. And at the same time, it was now starting to push me into my filming. So my crew were getting a little bit disillusioned with me as a skater because I hate to say it, and I will say this now I'm older because it's that long ago, but I feel like it was jealousy inspired. I got put onto a company, a big American brand. I got sponsored for winning a comp. They used to feed me skates and travel to competitions and outfit, clothes, all sorts of stuff. And the skaters that I started coming up with in West London often used that as some kind of piss take. Oh, why you always got these kids coming up to you? Oh, you're the grommet attract. Grommets are kids that aren't really doing it. Oh, you're the grommet magnet. Oh, why you always got these kids coming up to you? Oh, Jordan, you're so good. Like, I never understood that at the time. I've always seen people pushing their friends, and I always found that a little bit odd. So at that point, I've started to seek out and find what was the London scene at the time. So London at that point, so tying back into what I'm saying about slight wasteland or at least empty land, we used to travel into Liverpool Street when on the weekends it was empty. Nowadays there's parties, clubs, all sorts going on. Then it was the Golden Mile. Right? We used to get into there and it was our playground for the weekend. The only thing you had up against you was security guards. We used to go and find a spot at, say, Nat West or at the Barbican or wherever and session that. And that was from, say, 15 years of age. And you got to meet people from all across London, different accents, different vibes, different family backgrounds, different ethnicities. And yet we all had that common thing. It was very hip hop in that sense, you know. We had that common ground of just smashing the city, always up in your skills. And someone needed to document that. So I was always filming as well. Funny little random fact as well. One of my first video cameras outside of the one my granddad used to lend me, used to have Professor Green. He was a very big skater, very talented skater. I don't know, he's never really talked about that, so I won't say it for him too much, but he was a wicked skater and he was a wicked filmmaker. He used to run a thing called Inline Media. And when I got on my sponsorship flow, I'd never had money for a proper video camera. He needed a new pair of skates, so we did a switch. And he gave me one of my first high-8 video cameras. Wow. And that was what I went on to do. So yeah, thank you for that, bro. Massive influence. And even still now, looking at some of your old videos that still made it through online, you're good, man. You should have held on to that. Hey, you became big in other ways.
I think he inspired a lot of people as well in his path. So
yeah, massively so, man. Even as an upcoming battle artist, when it was a relatively, well, not a fresh thing, but it was the way that the UK was pushing it with the jump off and that, you know. I felt very proud to see him on stage and just go, yeah, that's a guy like you and I doing that, tearing apart these people's souls. With the sort of tie-in of Graff, there was one guy from our crew in the ESK who couldn't skate and he couldn't do much else. He used to get his rushes from Graff. And it was just about the time, so now this ties back into me getting my first high-8 video camera. We used to bust into all sorts of places. We used to go on track walks on sort of BR sort of lines. We cut into a yard once that I documented. And this gave me a real passion for another sort of subculture, another side of life. It was another one of the pillars of hip-hop. And yeah, it's a shame that guy, I think he saw it as his kind of secret little thing. So as much as he liked showing the rush of it to other people, he didn't really want to bring anyone else and put anyone else on.
What you said earlier about the jealousy thing, you think it comes back to jealousy. I mean, I'm someone who I feel I've experienced all of that. Like, it's weird. It's like when you're at a certain level and people feel like they're on your own level, then you're cool. Then you start getting a little bit more acknowledgement, and certain people you start noticing a certain
Well, it's
behavior.
funny you say that. This guy, 25 something years, 23 years down the line, this guy now sends me on a regular basis. He is officially my stalker.
Oh, mate. Do you want to talk about that?
People who know what it is know what it is. I don't believe in being fake. After many years of it going on, I ended up actually tracking him down, finding him, said it to his face. We'll say no more than that, but you know what happened.
But yeah, I find that kind of sad, basically, because like it begs the question: what are you doing with your life that you have to pay so much attention to someone else's life?
Bro, I said I wouldn't talk about him, but just to give context to this is a guy that came up wealthy, with with a silver spoon under his tongue, no worries in life, 2.4 children set up, no even real reason to be graphing. But he wanted to find that energy and that excitement from something that he wasn't getting. But that's often the way, don't you find that, that people, so many people from a sort of a disadvantaged background that really just get on, and as soon as they reach success or people see their authenticity or like something they see in that person thinks, why wasn't I there? I've got everything.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate and say, are you sure you didn't do something to him to start?
Oh, I'm sure I did. I'm sure I did. How big or small it was, I don't know, because the guy won't communicate it. I've given him so many options to discuss it. He'd rather pretend to be different people online. He'd rather try and bring me down by putting energy on me, like pretending to be fake women, or I think actually, and
hold on, pretending to be fake women, but sending it.
Mate, I don't even know where to start, which is why I probably won't, but why I tried not to. I think he has problems with his sexuality deep down. That's one thing that I can't cover, and I think another side of it is I remind him of everything that he hasn't done.
So do you reckon we'll get cancelled for talking about that?
No, I reckon you'll get some extra likes and probably some comments.
Yeah, let's go for it.
I think he fancies me at this point, so.
No,
it's a weird scenario, and there's no explaining it, and all I can say about it is, much like certain negative people I know in my life, he would get mad pleasure from being mentioned even in the negative rather than not being mentioned at all. So we'll just leave him at that. Okay. He knows what it is.
Did you have any beefs in the graph side of things?
Back then, nah, West London was kind of unified, man. Also, I was an outsider, so it wasn't so much of a problem.
How much work did you have to put to get included in being
Well, nowadays, funny enough, that's another thing that will probably come later on. I think that's just through people seeing something in you that they like. It was another area that I was filming. And to stick around the subculture for long enough, you need to be understood and possibly respected a little bit, Otherwise, you're not going to be around it much. Same thing with hip hop, man. You need to be seeing yourself in places. The amount of places I see you in nowadays, it's like, I know you put in the work all that time ago, but even now, you're still having to put in the work to stay relevant, to stay seen, and as a result, how many other doors that opens up is evident.
I mean, for every door that opens up, there's a door that shuts as well.
Yeah, no doubt.
We go back to that thing of jealousy and whatever, basically, because I think what it is in the UK, there's this disease where if people see you doing okay, they think you're okay, so they don't need to support you anymore. And they don't realize that, we're not okay.
No.
We're still trying to survive.
I find that on Instagram so much.
But talk about it.
People always go, oh, you're doing so well, I see all your posts, and it's like, no, I'd just rather not write that work's low, or please, I need work, or anything like that. Like, I notice as soon as I get a certain amount of followers, other people drop off, or, everyone assumes you're doing well, therefore you don't need help. And that's the time when you need the most plugs, man.
When you see everything that's on socials, and majority of what you see is lies, 99%, everyone's trying to portray how they're doing well and how everything is glamorous and how...
The great thing is, though, is that you can repurpose the truth. It's about what you say or don't say. These interviews are a prime example. I come in here with targeted points I want to raise, but I end up covering it with a lot of fluff and story. Now, some people say, well, that's great. That's you. You've got this sort of 360 approach to stuff. Really, me driving home in the car after, I'm going to be like, oh, you didn't say this about film or that about film, or, So sometimes it's just about targeting the way that you want to put yourself out.
Yeah.
Slimming it down. Don't give it, much like my video work. I do so many different videos across the pool. So I'm not just a specialist in music video or documentary storytelling. And that sometimes waters things down as well. So it's sometimes about just realizing what's needed of you and then targeting it.
Talking about targeting, you then obviously started kind of looking at ways of targeting yourself in the world of filming and stuff. And, you know, you went to the extent of moving to France, and
Yeah.
a whole heap of things happened.
That was just another life experience. So we've taken the skating. I'm massively into chucking myself off stuff. I've got quite good at it. There's a company now sort of somewhat compensating me for my efforts. That stuck on for quite a while. And I haven't really touched on this, but I basically went to university to study marine and freshwater biology, of all things. Yeah, see, Mr. Random Cat there. Again, it was something that I'd had a passion about since I was about 4. Massively into sharks, whales. It was the era of the David Attenborough documentaries, you know, what were they called?
So
Life on Earth and all of that.
Is that where the fishing came from as well?
The fishing came from stepdad years later.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you, Mule, as well. Respect for that, because he changed my life forever. My mum married a Yugoslav guy. Anyway, go back to...
What came first, though? The fishing?
The fish came first.
Okay.
The fishing came later and tied into that want and that understanding.
Right.
But it was a lifelong goal of mine to become a marine biologist, so to study stuff underwater and to just understand the goings-on of the ocean. I fixed on that throughout my school career. There was even one point where I think I chopped my leg open on one of those door strips. And I was about 6 years old. The surgeon was stitching me up, and whilst they were doing that, they were talking to me and saying, "Oh, so what do you want to be when you grow up?" You know, taking your mind off stuff. And I said, "I want to be a marine biologist." And they looked at my mum and said, "What? Where does a kid this age know a word like that? Has he got one in the family or something?" And I said, "No, but my uncle's an astrophysicist."
Wow.
He almost dropped the needle. I'd basically stuck everything that I did through school, mess ups aside and all of that. I decided that was going to be my goal. So I took science courses at college. Every route I took was to go and do that at uni. I got to uni. I've gone there with my skates, my turntables and my video camera. Set up shop there. First thing I'm trying to do is get gigs out there, and literally the last thing I was doing at uni, because I only managed a year out of it, was DJing. So I just enjoyed uni a little bit too much. That would be my one bit of advice. If there's some youth watching this that are thinking about their future options, if you've got a choice to go to uni, do it in a year. Take a year out and go and get some life experience. That might even change the fact that you don't want to invest in that for another 3-4 years. Or you might have enough life experience to go off and do other stuff and make yours. Look at some of the most successful people that are out there. There were sometimes kids that failed at school, got put onto a reduced program, got in doing an apprenticeship somewhere. Next thing you know, they run their own business now. It doesn't necessarily mean if you were, even more so now, especially with all those costs of uni. You think I would have done that then? I didn't even succeed at uni, and I'm still paying off the little year of charges now, still now, 20-something years later. So yeah, my advice would be go with your heart, but if you're going to go to uni, take a year out and find yourself first.
That is so important.
So yeah, uni fucked up at that. I remember my mum and a close family friend, Joseph Painter, Piper, rest in peace, closest friend, passed away. He played a bit of a fatherly figure role in my life. Caribbean guy that I met later in life, in my late teens. And yeah, I remember coming back from uni in a van with him and mum and crying all the way home and thinking, I've just found the best friends in life. I'm not worried about uni, I'm worried about everything that it kind of made. So my DJing gigs, my friend base, first time I found friends that kind of align with me, and I'm having to leave there. So in this van, on the way back, I formulated a plan. I'm like, right, no uni, what am I gonna do? Right, the only thing I wanna do now is work in a skate shop. So I decided to apply for a job in a skate shop in Marble Arch. I got that. It worked out quite well with my sponsors because they could just send stuff direct through there. I was also a good little bit of press for them because anyone wanting to buy the skates, I could, in this shop, go, oh, why don't you try razors, you know?
How did the sponsorship help with that?
Well, it just meant that I could talk confidently about stuff, but it also meant that I could recommend these skates. People saw me, you know, I wasn't in loads of press, but I was a familiar face, so kids would often buy the skates off the fact that I was riding them. So that was great for me to be in a skate shop and they go, oh, what skate should I buy? Oh, why not try these ones I've got on, you know? It worked out well. So I did that for a couple of years. That was sort of the easiest, loosest time of my life. And then at that point, I decided I wanted a little something more. So I took a delayed gap year in a sense. I'd been on one snowboarding holiday my mum managed to afford for us. Funnily enough, took that creepy guy that I mentioned before. And we went out to France. I took to it like a duck to water. And so the second that week-long holiday was over, I was like, I want more of this. So I got straight online, started applying for jobs, DJ jobs, bar jobs, restaurant jobs, whatever. And then come September, I was out there. I went to work in France for a solid year. I had all sorts of ups and downs. I worked as a chef out there. So again, trying something new. again, in life, if you need to get somewhere, there are some times where it's all right to tell a little porcupine, you know, not a lie, a white lie. It was a phone interview to England. They'd run out of chefs. Oh, what's your sous chefing like? Well, I'd already got tips from the chef that was going to hire me, and it was all achievable stuff, you know. Blag it, but make sure that you can make that blag achievable. Much like lots of stuff, you know, in my career path later on that I'll go on to mention. Just take those chances. If it's something that's half feasible and you think you want to do it, just do it. Yeah. Or say you can do it and then make it happen.
You've done this, you've done that, you've done this, you've done... There's so much,
It's a little bit hard to center up.
It is, isn't
Yeah,
it? So,
there's a lot.
so as much as I would like to do the interview in 45 minutes, I think I need 45 years.
Sorry about that, man.
But then let's talk about a potentially life-changing, not potentially, a life-changing situation that happened for you. And I'm not going to say it, you say
No,
it.
I'll tell you from start to end. So basically, I've ended up on snowboarding. Season's wrapping up. I finally finished up there as a DJ in a bar, so that was cool. I changed it from chefing to DJing, upgraded my life situation there. I've left because the snow's died out. I'm ready to come back for the next year. I just need to build up some money in the summer in the meantime. An ex-girlfriend from Australia who'd parted, she'd moved back to Australia. And whilst I was living in France, I got a call from her saying, oh, I'm moving to, I can't do the Oz accent, but I'm moving to Switzerland. I was like, all right, why? Oh, because it's near London, innit? It's like, yeah, all right. Aussies, man. So anyway, I'm like, okay, cool, we'll try, see what happens. We've met up, she's come to London, we've met up one weekend, we've hit off like a house on fire, the love is back. She then came back the following weekend, we've hung out with friends, oh, pardon me, all about West London. And then we finished up in the bar, we've crossed the road, sitting on a little bench like this, our feet are on the curb, very close to the pavement, no, sorry, very close to the road. There's loads of parking spaces, and the car is basically just squeezed up, skirted right up on us. Kind of hit our feet, but it was kind of our fault, you know. They were overlapping the curb. So anyway, as we're starting to stand up and get up, passenger slammed his door onto our legs. Me always being the one to speak up, I was like, dude, what are you doing, man? Like, you see us there? What blood? When you speak up again, you're going to get wet. Oh, here we go. I can see the way this is going. All right, then, cool. So we're sort of building ourselves to get out of this spot. They're all muttering to themselves, the driver and the passenger. And then at that point, girlfriend says, why are you lot doing this to them? He turns to me straight away. He puts his fist in her face. And he goes, blood, your girl speaks to me like that again, I'm going to deck her. All right, cool. So that's building up again. Tensions are rising. My friends, you know, they're not really about it, but they're sort of working out what to do quietly. It's sort of building up with these guys. And then as the argument's going between passenger, my girlfriend, and me, girlfriend's in the middle, I'm keeping my sort of awareness about me, and I see the driver go back to his side in the roadside. Something went under his belt, and then something else went up his sleeve or onto his fist, and his jumper went over. And at that point, passenger's reaching, he's gone to punch my girl. I've got to him quicker, my reaction's quite quick like that. I've got to him first, but at the same time, I felt a solid almighty, well, I didn't even feel it. I've had a massive whack to the back of the head, and I've just dropped like a dead weight. Crumpled like a piece of paper. Just, you imagine, not even falling backwards sort of thing, but just... Next thing you know, I've woken up, my friends are around, the guys are gone, my friends are telling me, stay down, stay down. You know, you naturally try and get up out of those situations. Girlfriend's looking at me like I'm a ghost or something, she's crying. Everyone else is looking a little bit lost. And I've heard that I've been unconscious for, I think, just under 10 minutes. I started fitting, so when I got hit, it was like a battery chicken, you know, just my head went cuckoo. I got hit so hard that my body crumpled, but then when I fell backwards, the back of my skull slammed and smashed the pavement as well. And that's another thing as well, all those tough guys going around punching people needlessly, you realise your punch might not even be that strong, but if you drop into the floor, they smash their head. I see so many of these internet videos where I'm not even thinking about the punch, it's the way they fell on the floor. And as you're walking away, I bet you're thinking, shit. Well, actually, no, a lot of people aren't even thinking shit. People are thinking, yeah, I taught him, but that could be you in jail for the rest of your life off the back of that. And for what? One move. And I don't know whether the guy who did that to me feels any way about it. I know he's probably met his match ever since when you carry on with that kind of energy. But I'd be very interested to know what his thought process was. Not before the punch or the hit, but after. You know? And how many times have you gone on and done that since? Hopefully never again, and you learnt from it, but yeah. You see these videos of people getting dropped left, right and centre on the internet, man, and that hits me harder now because I know everything that I've had to come back from. Yeah. So anyway, with that, I've woken up, friends are telling me I've been fitting for about 5 minutes and I've been unconscious 5 to 10 minutes on the floor. At some point in that, an ambulance turns up, took me backstage, asked me, shone a light in my eyes, asked me if I'd been unconscious. I think, we said it's a bit of a silly question, really. You'd be asking other people, no?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's part of the reason why I feel I didn't get blue lighted immediately. One thing I've always got, even after just getting knocked the fuck out, is a resolve. I'm back on my feet and I'm acting already. Like, I can see girlfriend crying. My first thing is to protect her further, make sure she's all right. I'm not going to be able to hold together the night, so I get a taxi and I get me and my girlfriend back to my house.
Can I stop you for a second?
Sure, man.
Again, we go back to that thing where, you were talking about the abuse and you put your sister and your mom first. You didn't, even though the thing was happening to you, you were thinking about the consequences to other people. So now you're on this concrete floor and you're recovering slightly. And the first concern is what's going on with the girlfriend.
Yeah.
I think
It's funny you bring attention to that. I never would have thought about it like that.
But I'm just saying, I think that says a lot about a person. Big up for doing that.
That's up, man.
Not many people would. Yeah, not many people would. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so I've got her home. And I think at about 5, 6 in the morning, I've woken up. I can't really see. All I can see is black, like stage cloth and stars. That dizzy sort of feeling. And all I can hear is woo, like test card noise. So I know something's not working properly. And as I've sat up, I've started projectile vomiting. It was, probably from here to the camera. Mum's heard the noise downstairs, so she's come out and she said, "What's up?" And I've said, "Oh, don't worry. I was in a fight last night." And then girlfriend's piped up. She's come out and said, No, he wasn't in a fight. He got attacked. And from that point, Mum readied herself. She called the hospital. They said, "Look, if you can take him, then that's cool." So she got me to the hospital pretty quickly. They gave me a few basic tests and then just put me on a bed. They couldn't tell me what was wrong. At that point, it was probably just concussion or something like that. There wasn't any opening on my head from the tool. It was either a kosh or a knuckle duster. I'm not sure at this point, but whatever it was, yeah, it was solid. So there's a cut, but there's no, split skull, or they didn't think. And they just keep telling me to chill, chill, chill. So I've been in this hospital for 2 to 3 days. My head feels like it's about to explode. The pressure on it was ridiculous. And then all these hospital people kept telling me to do was chill. Someone's coming to assess you. I got moved up to a higher ward. I remember this poignantly. I don't know how, because one thing that comes with head injuries of that sort is your memory, short-term and long-term. I think I was on survival mode at that point anyway. Maybe that's why some things stick. But I remember being wheeled up to a ward, and there was one old boy there that was trying to tell me war stories. There was another person who was scared. I felt like the least qualified to be in there, like been knocked the fuck out. But at the same time, I was kind of listening to these people's problems. I'd go and get this old guy a couple of cups of tea just to make sure he was all right. I remember in the middle of the night, someone's colostomy bag burst, and so everyone's straight up on beds. And I was just like, you keep telling me to chill here. I can't chill. Stuff keeps going wrong. And so on day 3 of not really being seen to, and then telling me at that point, "Oh, we need to wait for the swelling to go down to scan you effectively." So, okay, that makes sense. You should have told me that 3 days ago, At this point, I can't handle it anymore. My friends have come to visit me. Ironically enough, the one that I mentioned before. I needed to get out of this situation, and he went, "You know what, let's get out of here." And so I remember heading out with him. We escaped from the hospital pretty cleverly, got in his car. I met up with my girlfriend, who was still in the UK after that. We've gone up to one hill. He had an American football. Me, him, and my girlfriend all throwing this ball around, just having the time of our lives. And I remember going to catch the ball, looking up at the sun and going, "Ah!" and just collapsing. The sun, sensitivity to light after a head injury. I didn't realise. It's just dropped me to the floor like, "Oh, I can't go on." He's like, "Oh, I think we should probably go back to the hospital." Anyway, went to the hospital. They put me through put me through the tube. Finally got brain scanned, CAT scanned, and they went, "Oh, so to tell you, you've got fractured skull, hemorrhaging on your frontal lobe at the front of your brain, and a fractured skull at the back. Fractured skull, and then bleeding at the back. The frontal lobe bleed, fracture, hemorrhaging at the back, yeah." So they said, oh, we're going to need to blue light you to Charing Cross. I'd never been in an ambulance like that before as well. I remember I wanted to sit up and look through the windows to see where I was. Yeah, it was kind of surreal. Went to Charing Cross, got taken all the way up to the top to the higher dependency ward, whereby they wanted to keep me in overnight for observations and possibly to open me up. I was massively anxious at that point, never been as anxious as that in my life. Well, I don't remember it all, but this is stuff that's getting fed back to me by my mum after. And then at some point come evening time, I correlated that all these people around me on pumps and on like lights and beeping machines and shit, high-end technology. I was like, this is where people come to die. That's the only common sense I made in my head with that. So I told my mum about how it was affecting me, to the point where she even went ahead and took my shoes, took my jacket, because I told her I was going to escape. I correlated being there with dying. So she wasn't allowed to stay in the ward all night or anything like that. She had to make way. And as soon as the lights for the ward went out, the reality really hit. All these pumps around me and blue lights and, like I said, mad technology that I've never seen before. I was like, I need to get out of here.
What I want to do is I want to get into your mind at this point to go, they've put you in a place where you pretty much know that they're telling you you're going to die. And somehow you've gone, screw all of this, I'm out of here.
Mm-hmm. I think part of that was probably consistent with the trauma, I'm sure. But at the same time, you know, part of it was wacko. And I'd just done what they call the Glasgow Coma Scale test, which they do to anyone that's been unconscious for any amount of time. The longer you've been unconscious, the more damage, permanent damage could be done to your brain. I'd been out for a fair old whack, like when the doctors got told about that. Oh, okay, good luck. They'd done the Glasgow Coma Scale test on me. I thought I'd done really well. Like it was a test to be proud of. What's your name? What's your date of birth? Where do you live? Who's the Prime Minister? You know, that sort of shit. Apparently I was answering all the questions like and thinking like I got them all right. You know, I probably got my name right.
Wow.
Who knows? But yeah, that was what they then act on, is that information. So my head is ski whiff at that point. So I'm there alone. I realised that if I close my eyes, I might not wake up in this place. And so I've decided my only way is out. I haven't got my jacket, shoes or socks. And I've just gathered my stuff. I've gone out of the ward door. I've gone to the elevator, to the lift. And realised there's no down button. There's like a keypad. I'm like, shit. It's that much of a high-end ward. You need to be staff only. It's only staff admission. There was some sort of fight or flight thing going on for me because I wasn't going back in the ward and the alarm bells weren't ringing and no one was chasing to look for me at that point. But I do remember vividly seeing like a big rolling, like dirty linen sack, trolley. And I remember thinking, well, that's probably destined to go down. And so it was like something out of Sarah Connor episodes or whatnot. Like basically saw that trolley, climbed under the sheets, stuck myself in that. And in a few minutes, I think it was a few minutes, that ended up getting rolled into the lift. I heard going down, and then when I heard mezzanine level, or, you know, ground floor, whatever, up and out, gone. Straight past the person that was pushing it, straight past security, and then out onto the mean streets of Hammersmith.
So they watch you running out?
Yeah, I'm sure they probably had to look back at it on security camera the next day as well.
What were you wearing when you ran out of that hospital?
Right, so yeah, standard hospital garb, man. I was in one of those smocks that does up at the back, so your backside's hanging out. I think I was still in socks, no shoes, because mum had taken.
So while you're running out, your backside's hanging out.
Basically, I looked like Homer Simpson in there, man, seriously. Ducking out of the hospital, ran straight out of the big glass doors and into the cold world. It was September or October, pretty cold outside. And I remember just feeling like, well, obviously everything wasn't right with my head, but I felt at this point like a fugitive.
At any point, did you look at it like, well, if this is my last night supposedly on Earth, I'm going to go and enjoy myself,
No,
even if
not
I'm
at all.
butt naked?
I was on a reptile level of thinking, you know, too hot or too cold, hungry or not hungry. It wasn't any wants or anything, it was necessities. I got out of there and I immediately created a detachment with what could have been the place where I died. Little did I know that I could have collapsed in the street and died and not been able to get the help, but hey. I remember every single car that went past when I got on the far side of the road, I thought it was someone that was coming for me or whatever. Every flash of lights on the wall or whatever, it was someone coming for me. So I got down this side street. I remembered my home phone number. I remembered my friend's phone number.
The stalker friend.
Dickhead again.
Yep.
Imagine. Called him. He was off his nugget. He was drunk, so I couldn't do anything about coming to pick me up. So I called my sister and she said, I can't do anything about it, but if you get in a taxi, I'll pay it at the other end. And so I remember thinking, no taxi's going to let me in. So I had this sort of, as much as I was, brain dead, I had this sort of survival mode going on, something sort of deep in there that was going to keep me on my feet and keep me getting to where I needed to go. So I realised any taxi driver that saw me wasn't ever going to let me in basically what was addressed. But anyway, I've got up to this roadblock that basically has advertising boards in front of it and put my hand out for a taxi, so they just thought I was in the top or whatever. Taxi driver let me in. He's one of those that you pay at the other end, so that was all right. He drove me home and then got home, basically went to bed straight away. Sister paid taxi man. And I wake up again early in the morning. It was almost like a repeat of 4 days before when I'd first woken up and projectile vomited, except this time I couldn't see. All I could hear was ringing in my ears and all I could see was stars. And at that point, I thought, fuck, I've shot myself in the foot here. So come the morning, my mum called higher dependency ward and said, look, can you get me?
So you survived the night?
I made it through the night, yeah. And, I may have survived the night in the hospital, but the fact is that they were more than likely readying themselves to open my head up just to relieve pressure.
You know what else that says is like, maybe just because they're doctors doesn't mean they always got it right.
No, there's kind of a black and white approach to most stuff, with those things. But at the same time, I'm guessing they only wanted the best for me. But I still stick to my decision. I'm happy with what I did there.
Okay.
So yeah, my mum's called for me to try and get back into higher dependency ward. No, I'm sorry, miss. The bed's already been filled. It's how it works. People dying every minute around town, So I still can't just stop there. I've gone back to Ealing Hospital. I've chilled down there for a bit. And then again, after a few days of that and them telling me to chill and me having to deal with other people's problems just in order to buy me some chill, no. So yeah, got out of there.
Okay, so what happened next?
From there, it was just bed rest.
At home?
Yeah, at home. Police were still running their investigations because the guy had basically told me he was going to kill me and then went and tried to do it. So any charge, it was going to be on attempted murder. Other stuff was going on like that in the background, but ultimately it was just about me surviving at that point. I got in, I can't remember how many weeks or months it was, but ultimately got put onto an OT, occupational therapy course, whereby in its basis, I was putting together coloured blocks. I was looking at a sheet and putting together coloured blocks, replicating what was on the sheet. It was that kind of basic level cognitive tests. It was all, that was a massive struggle for me. That was when I realised what my difficulties were, because I'd kept autopilot going so strongly at that point, until that point where I was having to do something very manual and simple. Copy what one side of a Rubik's Cube looked like, or write these words in consecutive sentence, or read a story from the newspaper and write down the key points from it. Stuff like that. It was just pew. And yet those kind of trainers and therapists were the only people that really, I've got nothing to do but thank those people. My memory was shot, and yet I can still remember every single one's name that helped me in my progress into life. So Paula, had a Kiwi OT, respect to you. I hope you've gone far in life, changed others as well. Later on, because at that point my activity was limited to 15 minutes. When you break your arm, you get a cast put on your arm, and it limits its movement and you heal. How do you do that to your brain? I'd already got the pressure shit, I'd avoided having my brain opened up, but it was more about how to treat your head well in that sense. And a lot of that comes from just reducing the stimulus, reducing the input into it. So things we take for granted, reading a newspaper, playing a computer game, listening to music, watching a film, anything like that is input into your brain and making it work.
So everything became a challenge?
Everything became a 15-minute task. I couldn't do anything for more than 15 minutes without having to have a 2-hour rest break. Wow. So if I listen to your album, I'm getting 15 minutes in, I've got to switch it off.
Well, I'm lucky you got 15 minutes in.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Nah, it's all love, man. So yeah, that was basically the pattern for about 1.5 years. At the same time, my mum's instrumental in all the court case that's going on, and also my later therapy, my follow-up therapy. So I got assessed to go and be part of quite a revolutionary centre in London. It's called the London Brain Injury Centre. There's only one of 3 of its kind in the UK. And yet our centre only served up to 60, 70 people. So imagine it's probably the same around the country. Now think how many people are receiving head injuries daily, whether it be strokes, attacks, self-inflicted shit. You know, they say that everyone has at least one person in their close circle that has suffered from some form of head injury. Tumours, all of that stuff as well. So it's something that needs a lot more attention on it, you know, but because of me not having to have my head opened up, because me still wanting to be present and vocal and try and string my words together as strongly as possible, head injuries are always dubbed the hidden injury. I made it even more hidden.
Do you think you still suffer from that?
Everything. So when I went on to Rehab UK, it's like a high school timetable, but instead of English, math, science, it was stress management, anger management, cognitive function. So that's your memory, short-term and long-term, your dealing and handling of emotions, avoiding black and white thinking, which still to this part is a challenge of mine for sure. And all of these were broken down into a timetable style approach. A little bit of maths, a little bit of IT as well, just so it keeps you ready on the computer and able to actually execute your skills as you learn them. And then as you progress through the plan, I was able to do more hours. Because at first I was going on the train to the centre and I'd fall asleep before I even got there. It was all too much to even get to the centre. It took 1.5 years of bed rest to even be able to attend a 3 half-day-a-week programme to do that.
So you were spending a lot of the time actually sleeping?
Oh, yeah, definitely so. Yeah, massively.
Did at any point whenever you woke up, you just felt like you've missed so much?
Yeah. One thing I didn't mention is that with the head injury, a lot of people, they actually get a switch broken where they end up not being able to control their appetites. Mine was quite opposite. I was getting no appetite. So put food in my mouth, brain would send a message there and didn't ask for this and would naturally make you throw up. So I was throwing up 3-4 times a day in the early days of it. You know, even after I've made it out and I'm alive, stress, you know, even a little concern or an anxiety or whatever, it would make you throw up. I was on Ensure Plus, you might have heard of those, something that a lot of elderly people or people that can't swallow food. I had to have swallowing assessments with people literally putting their fingers down my throat whilst eating bits of bread so they could work out why my saliva wasn't working. I had to take tablets to make my saliva, like you put them in and 10 minutes later you're dribbling. You know, several people in my life have said, oh, you know, after it went to court and I got an amount of compensation for my loss of earnings and that, even after the threats of attack and other things and all sorts that went on with that court case, nearly broke up and erupted in court. The sort of whole journey of being extracted from life as I knew it, my friendships, relationships, everything. Girlfriend couldn't deal with the issues, so she fucked back off to Australia. Although I would never go back and change it for anything because of all of the experience learned. Like I went back to a baby level of learning how to remember things. So at this Rehab UK, we were literally taught how your brain works in order to encode information and put it through to secondary storage. You know, these are things that you learn naturally and inherently as a child. And yet we were on paper having to reteach your brain how to put together those connections. Practice and rehearsal sticks. I was 20 or 21 years. And in the prime of my life, when it's just about the age as a young adult where you're really starting to find yourself and be able to put into action everything you learned as a younger, I'm still massively upset about that element of it. You know, I didn't get back to paid employment for 5 or 6 years after that. I was 26 or 7 by the time I was starting to make some kind of money for myself again.
And that in itself is an interesting story as well. Like, but we'll come to that because I love the way you got back into the work. The accidental
man. Yeah, it was
that
a
happened
lovely flip, man. It's funny how these things present themselves when your eyes are open. Eh?
Yeah. Let's stay on the subject of you know, your recovery. So how long did your recovery?
Right. So 1.5 years from the head injury until I could attend rehab. Rehab then lasted for 2 years. The program slowly turned into something of a vocational profile in nature. So then you have less psychologists and therapists and psychotherapists. You've got more people attuned to just getting career work out of you. What's feasible with your difficulties and challenges. One thing we were taught very early on, they're not your problems, they're your challenges, you know? And it's how to actually prepare yourself for going into a world where lots of people don't want to hear about that. They just want to know if you can do a job or not. So let's be realistic about what your abilities and capabilities are. I took this as a chance to do something completely different. I thought, right, this is my reset button. You know, I'm going to be able to make up for those 6 years that I've kind of lost and be able to do something that not only makes me feel of value, but makes the people that I'm working for feel it's a valued role. I'm not just a head injury guy, you know, a brain dead guy going in there trying to just tick a box.
And I have to say, props to you for doing that, because there's so many people that would have just pretty much laid down and died.
Oh, some of the most inspirational people I ever met were from that centre. People that have been caught in the prime of their life and in 250k a year, caught with a stroke, or someone that thought they were dead before from a tumour and then they got back into life and then they got another tumour. You know, some of the most inspirational folk that didn't give up, and yet society wasn't really providing much for lots of those people as well because, again, the hidden injury. If you don't have any visible injury, how intolerant are we to a lot of people that we maybe don't know what's going on, head injury or not, just life situations. So yeah, I learned to deal with a lot of that there, even just how to positively talk about your head injury in the future.
And so in some ways it made you a much better person.
I wouldn't change it for the world. It's given me insight and perspective. And
so subconsciously and indirectly, you need to thank the guy that attacked you.
Yeah, to a degree I have at times as well. I was getting threats on the phone at one point early on and I figured it could only really be him. So I just said, oh yeah, no, shit ain't great right now, but it's gonna, thank you for changing up my life, you know, you're gonna make things better. No, bullshit scenario, but just had to roll with it and make the most of it. And like I say, I then had an option. I haven't technically got a solid career history. I've been doing lots of fill-in jobs just to stay out snowboarding or to keep my skating going. And then at this point, right, what do you want to do? And you've got all these people willing to help.
You're talking about your snowboarding, your skating, but you just had this massive head injury that's pretty much put you on your deathbed, and you're not worried about skating and snowboarding?
Snowboarding ain't happening again, that's for sure. As much as I want it to be, I can't just wish
But you understand where I'm going. It's like those are things that are risky.
It was a massive pain. Just knowing that I might not even be able to balance enough, that I might not be able to get that balance to be able to even snowboard, fuck, even go in there or affording it or whatever. It was just, will I be able to do it? At that point, my mind was quite closed off to those things because I had to be a little bit realistic. You know, things like getting on the train or being out in public or not having my back to a wall, you know, because I might get attacked again, and all those things were challenges.
And have you ever sort of like just been walking down the street normal, I don't know, to go to an Asda or something and you've collapsed because of this?
No.
Okay.
The fatigue was massive with it.
Yeah. And then obviously after that, you started looking for ways to basically better your life.
Yeah.
So you started searching for success.
I had a career coach at this Rehab UK. I decided that I wanted to tie into all the old camera bits that I'd done, the skate filming and all of that. And I wanted to make something of what I saw as one of my few strengths that I could enjoy and push on with. So, you know, he was old school. He was sort of like a union kind of worker type of guy, you know, brown suit and very formal voice, formal Cockney voice. And Jordan, this isn't realistic, you know, TV's long hours and, you know. But he came to me with a glint in his eye and he said, I have got you something similar, something that will help build your experience, and then eventually, if you feel ready for it, you can get into TV. So he got me a voluntary gig at the Barbican Arts Centre, dealing with the tech department. So that's setting up lights, microphones, everything for lots of their conferences. I learned how to run a cinematic reel and load that up, the original ones. We were doing events and recordings and all sorts, and it was just great. It was a stable base with a really good team, a lovely venue. It wasn't quite what I wanted to do, but I needed to be realistic. And then after, I think, 8 to 12 months of doing that, the people in the team actually offered me paid employment, and I got a further gig there. And that was a big jump up because it was someone paying me for my skill base as opposed to for their pity. That I realized my power in that. As soon as I could get my energy enough after do a full week's work, things are changing.
So at what point did you start feeling like your energy's back to where it needs to be?
When I got my proper humour back and I'm rushing around this building and I'm not falling asleep on the train every day, although funny enough, years later that happens now, but just through other overexertions. A funny story actually occurred at that point as well. So I'm still keeping on with this idea of TV and broadcast work. Back at the house, I've just had a new next door neighbour move in, just on the open side, you know, the road side of the house. And then funny enough, one day I was outdoors having a smoke. We got a back gate and some head popped over my gate. I was like, what? Climbed over my fence and then chased out after them. And it was these two dishevelled looking bods, a guy and a girl, and they've run down the back doubles and hidden away somewhere. So I'm like, all right, cool, they're out my property. Somehow, 20 minutes later, I'm walking back down my street, and I see these same pricks jump out of my next door neighbour's garden with an arm full of stuff. And about a minute later, I see my next door neighbour run out in a towel, belly hanging out. Someone's been in my house. And I was like, yeah, I've got them. I chased after the girl. I chased after both of them, but yeah, crackheads are fast species, man. I've ended up chasing after them. I've only got to the girl. The guy's left his girl for dead. And she's going, oh, no. And he's hiding something behind her back. So I've grabbed the stuff from behind her back, dropped it to the floor, and there's a wallet, keys, a phone, a couple of other bits and pieces. And she's like, what are you doing? You're taking my stuff. And I looked at it and I just saw a Mr. on the card, and the credit card. I was like, that's not yours. At this point, I didn't really know my rights. I see my neighbour there. I'm kind of holding her. I was going to put her down on the floor, but I just didn't know whether that was fucking legal. So, yeah, basically ended up just telling her to piss off. My neighbour came out in his towel. I gave him his stuff back and he was grateful. I was like, oh, yeah, welcome to the neighbourhood. He'd just moved in. And I don't know, one thing turned to another, and in conversation he was saying to me, so what are you doing with yourself? And I told him the head injury story and so on. Told him I was still currently recovering and looking for options. And he said, you want to get in TV? He goes, I'm an FX designer. He'd currently designed the Little Shop of Horrors plant that was on stage. Wow. Big, massive plant that moves and does all that shit. He said, I've got a load of people in broadcast that owe me favours. If you ever need a leg up, I've got you. And from that point on, I got a couple of little experiences working on adverts. I did one Kleenex advert. I did a PSP advert. I got to work with one big director called Pez, who was very big in stop frame animation. You know those ones where you see someone cooking with a mortar and pestle and the food breaks into Lego bricks? Mm-hmm. All those kind of videos, right? Or the onion breaks into Lego sections. He was the innovator of that stuff, man. And so I got to work with all these cool people on a voluntary basis. And then after a couple of words from one of the production assistants, he was like, you're a super runner. Got to keep you on. Well, actually, no, he stuck 50 in my hand and he was like, we want you back tomorrow. And it all carried on from there. That was when my energy was definitely back. My problem solving wasn't fully together at that stage, but I was keeping a brave front and a strong front, enough to keep me employed. But that's one thing he said, you know, ever since that point, super runner. I'm always in the right place at the right time. So yeah, basically I got onto that. I was doing lots of productions left, right and centre, and decided I want to make a career thing of this. It needs to be something deeper as well. So I wanted to do, rather than advertising, I wanted to do broadcast. I ended up doing a bit of research, one way or another, ended up with a company called Optimum. They make shows like Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares, The F Word, Mary Queen of Shops, Police Camera Action. And I got dropped straight onto that team, Police Camera Action team. Very small team. They had a set of team, the OBS team, that went out in a police car basically 48 hours at a time, filming all sorts of shit from the back seat. You had the production team in-house, and then you had the Studio Links team that do the professional stuff, you know, the sharp-looking stuff with Alistair, whatever his name was, walking up to the camera like, and this week on Police Camera Action. So that was all quite surreal.
So did you ever get caught up in any dramas with any of those programs? Because, let's be real, Ramsay's a bit of a nutcase.
Ramsay, all the women in the office loved him. They swooned over him every time he walked through the office. I was still in my do-rag phase at the time with my cane row, and he was like, oh, Sinbad. That's all he had to say to me. So yeah, Gordon Ramsay, look at me now. Well, he'd be like, yeah, where are you? In a darkened room with a baldy. But no, Gordon Ramsay, it was a good experience, but he was reaching his kind of success period at that point.
He's a character, isn't he?
They did all the Jamie Oliver shows. They were any cooking show that was going at the time they did. And all those guys were starting to find their fame, their footwork. So no time for them. But one person that stood out for me was Mary Portas, who did the fashion version of a Gordon Ramsay show, basically reshaping people's businesses. There was a show called The Great British Menu with another judge on there. These people understood my head injury, and yet they treated me just as an achiever as opposed to someone doing the best they can do because of whatever circumstances. And I remember as well, people always thought of her as somewhat hard-nosed. This judge was very opinionated, and yet when I used to balance my stamina, what I'd have to do, because production hours could be 12 to 16 to 18 hour days, I'd need to crash at some point during that, otherwise I wasn't effective. And I remember that judge from the Great British Menu going, you can have my dressing room at lunchtime, I'll make sure that there's a sign on the door. He goes, sometimes I get a bit tired, there's a little roll-out mat, and I would go there and have an hour's sleep. And I know that was much the resentment of lots of production stuff. Oh, it's nice for you to be able to go and have a sleep. People just don't get it. So yeah, I ploughed through that, working on a variety of different productions. A Channel 4 scheme came about that I heard about and caught wind of, that was basically a diversity training scheme. So basically, if you weren't white or you had a disability, you tick those boxes and then you applied for it. Competition was strong. It was basically to work up, so to take the next step up from working as a runner, or a production assistant, you'd then be a researcher, so doing all of the valuable work, all of the fact finding and so on to make a TV show. Anytime you see someone, a presenter on a TV show, go, yo, my research, I've just come up with this stat or whatever. No, it was always the researchers, most valuable people in any team. So yeah, Channel 4 got this course going. I applied for it. I got to the next stages where they got to meet me, and they just said, you need to build a little bit on what you've got in order to make full use of this course. But we've got our eye on you. I think I'd already applied for that 1 year before, so this may be my second time around. I've got an intro with them, and they said, right, we'll set you up some work experience. Got me back to Optimum, working on higher end stuff within the same sort of shows. Reapplied for the channel scheme the following year. I think there was something like, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of applicants. Like, it was a solid process. You know, as soon as things started going online, everyone and their mum just applied for stuff. It was down, I think, I got on, and it was one of 14 places out of all those applications. They then placed everyone who had achieved that onto a different independent production house, mostly in London. And again, that was one thing where they didn't understand my head injury. I got given a job out in Manchester, and it was like, this is going to be some of my first proper paid employment since my head injury. How are you shipping me out to Manchester? Originally it was Brighton as well, and it's like, it's just not going to be achievable. I had to come to terms with stuff myself and realise this was never going to be even easier, so just had to plough on. I took the risk, moved up to Manchester. Amazing decision.
All right.
The job, I ended up working on A Place in the Sun, so that's that property relocation show. Yeah, maybe not the show that I was most passionate about or whatnot, but it meant that I could practice these fundamentals, and they give me a little bit more responsibility because I was a researcher now. So that meant finding contributors, finding people to be on TV, interesting people, finding locations, getting legal sign-off. We were dealing with shows in America at the time, so I was dealing with like the Stratosphere restaurant, the restaurant in Las Vegas where there's a thing that spins around the top, a funfair ride that spins around the top. I got the Bellagio Casino. These are all places that don't normally really allow filming, and I got these all at bottom rate. An Elvis impersonator in the Little White Chapel. Man, I maxed it, and this is when I realised the strength in this shit.
For the sake of getting everyone to understand the level of what you were doing in terms of working for all these companies, name me all the TV shows you work with.
Ooh. Right, Place in the Sun, a show called The King's Cookbook, which was going back over old historical documents of what a king used to eat, like roast porpoise and shit like that. King's Cookbook, River Cottage, Hugh Fernley, Great British Menu, Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares, another Ramsay show, The F Word, Police Camera Action, Mary Queen of Shops. Oh, I'm sure there's more.
Eurotrash.
I didn't work on Eurotrash, but the company that I did A Place in the Sun for was produced by the same people that originally did Eurotrash.
Okay.
Very quick shift of dynamic. I would have loved to have caught on to that company at that time. That would have taught me so much. Anyway, in the long and short of it, we were going back to Channel 4 every month for training, top-ups of skills, meeting back with our cohorts. And I steadily realised that the experience that I was getting in Manchester was very different to the experience that lots of my friends were getting in London.
Better or worse?
My experience was worse. I felt like I was just filled into a position just to make up the space, the time. You know, they got me at a deal and they got me at a lesser price because I was a trainee, but really I was doing the same job as anyone else on the show. They weren't bringing anyone else on. So whilst I'm hearing all these fantastic stories from back down in London, and actually now the career paths of lots of my colleagues and my peers, you know, one in particular, he's worked on Nas's latest film project, Jay-Z's latest film project. Another friend regularly working, another was a commissioner at Channel 5 and ITV, has now moved off Sky. Big bod, you know. You got my friends on six-figure sums now. And okay, they didn't have the disadvantage of a disability, but I felt like whatever they were equipped with, versus what I was being given were very different things. So it was late on in my time in Manchester, I realised I had to grab hold of whatever opportunities I could because this wasn't going to be a lasting option. So research skills were great. We got to shoot contributors, film contributors like on location, which was cool, just little like sort of B-cam bits. And then there was one poignant moment where someone said to me, have you ever used a Z1 before? Sony Z1, a particular type of semi-broadcast camera. And I used one once or twice at Channel 4 training, but I basically just said to them, yep, cool, all good. And they said, right, kit up, get down to London. We've got a contributor on the show for A Place in the Sun. The famous DJ, John 00 Heaven. He wants to move to either Scotland or Texas. Go and film him playing at the Ministry of Sound, and we'll use that as a segment to describe his story. Great, okay, cool, I can do that. Got back, it all went in. It could have been done better, but it made it to broadcast. And if anyone knows, they're real stringent about what guidelines are adhered to. It made it onto broadcast. I got my camera credit, or maybe not. Either way, I should have. And I realised, okay, I can do this. And again, that ties back into what I was saying about a blag, you know. I had a little bit of experience with it, but when someone asked, can you do something? I just said yes before anything else. And next thing you know, when A Place in the Sun stopped being filmed and my contract's still tied to this company, they're coming up with other development ideas. So I was brainstorming, pitching ideas to broadcasters. That's how TV shows are made. People sit in a room just talking about stuff.
When you did that, did you ever feel like you were giving away gems?
Yeah, totally.
That you could have kept to yourself?
Working with a TV company, as soon as you write anything on your pad is theirs for up to 7 years. So anyway, I'm stuck at this company. I'm on contract. A Place in the Sun's gone. They're trying to develop other things. And I remember, because of the back of them asking me if I could use a camera, I was then the go-to guy to then go and develop stuff out on the street, you know, put together taster tapes and so on. One idea they had about teenage pregnancy and teenage truancy out in the streets of Manchester, I basically had to go and covertly, because there hadn't been any agreement given on it at that point. So rooftops, alleyways, street sides, I had to go and film people truanting from school and teenage mums, just to put together a taster tape that you can then hopefully sell the idea to broadcasters, and then they put bigger cameras on it and do it real. And whilst I was out on that, Manchester was like a little bit late compared to London, but do you remember the CD selling era? When yes. London used to be taken over by really affluent, forward-thinking people. Yeah. Affluent was the wrong word there, but yeah, forward-thinking, strong-minded people that were making more money than the labels would have made them. Manchester is one of those places, it's a big city, small city with a big city vibe. And I really rate the way that everyone was going and getting it out there, man. It took me back to how London was a little bit earlier. So you got hundreds of young cats on the street selling their CDs, being nice to people, you know. A couple of people even later on got, because the council were like, oh, you're annoying people and shit like that, they were like, right, we're going to get street vendor cards. So I went out and did that. Anyway, I'm walking along the street and two of these rappers start talking to me and they're like, I could see them eyeing up the cameraman. They were well on it. And I could see this, but I thought I'd keep it about what they're talking about. And I said, okay, how about we shoot a music video? Do you want to push your talent further? Yeah, okay, cool. Right, okay. Distance myself from this a little bit. Meet me on Saturday at this bar, and we're going to have a chat about how to make a product for your songs. Like, yeah, okay, cool.
So your route to independence begins.
Indeed.
Okay.
These guys turned up at the bar early on a Saturday morning, glint in their eye, passionate about it, and I was like, right, this is going to work out. Funnily enough, I spoke with them, and I offered drinks to them. They go, no, we don't drink. I was like, so you really definitely wanted to come today then, didn't you? Turn up at a bar to not drink and talk about an idea. You're serious about it. And that was where I did my first ever music video.
Who were they?
A guy called Raspy and Torino Jackson. Torino's a wicked singer, or Ruel Price, should I say, because he's changed up his name to his government now. And so, yeah, we put together this shoot off our own backs. They involved a load of their friends, and we basically took over Manchester City for the day. It was great. We had the town on our side. It was big vibes. You had people taking shots of us. I met a couple of people that are now back down in London, like Dan 3D Williams, who was there, and his partner at the time, CC, who was a big promoter up on the northern scene. Load of extra faces came down for that. Mike GLC came all the way from London. He didn't look too happy in the video. It was a low budget video. What could we do? But that was the start of things, man. That was the start of it. And so from there, you got your first bit. You know, there's no reason to turn backwards at that point. I decided music videos was something I wanted to focus on more. Left Manchester. First thing I did was invest in that same camera. So the Z1, Sony Z1 for anyone that knows. It was about $4 grand on a bit of kit. For me at that time, it was a definite investment. And I just ran with it.
And how did you go about building your confidence to do this on a permanent basis? Because now you're independent. You're not relying on any companies to keep you afloat.
The best thing that TV instilled in me was the stuff not necessarily taught or offered to them for me directly as training, but the stuff that I learned on the job. People skills, how to talk with people, how to hold your talk and let someone expand. Going into things with a plan, you know. It's all well and good having everything at your disposal, but if you don't have a plan, you're not going to be using that to the fullest of your mode. And that's one thing that I definitely learned in film, in broadcast, was shooting schedules, shooting scripts, storyboards.
But what if things don't go according to plan? What do you
You've
do?
got to roll with it as well. That's what you get taught as well. I didn't get too many shoot experiences with A Place in the Sun. I was very resentful of that. You know, the fact is that I'm going on to a course to take on all knowledge, and yet I'm not even getting into the fundamentals of shoots. I can't talk with cameramans about lenses or...
So you're just researching?
No, they left me out there, man. They left me floating in the water about it all. And I'm you know, I wouldn't say still resentful about it, but I know... One thing I did learn, and this is spread bet across the board, is broadcast always tries to put itself out, much like this course is diverse, thinking of all corners, covering all people's stories. And yet, whether you're black, white or yellow, pink, whatever... Once you get into TV, you all turn into rah-rahs. You all turn into people just basically just pitching the same shit in different ways. And there's nothing revolutionary about TV now. The internet is king, and I'm glad that I came at this point. Although I missed out on music video era of the past when it was great, you know, and strong and artistic, and budgets were, you know, not even a thing. I'm kind of glad that it happened like it did, because I get to do exactly what I do now, and not have to listen to someone over-explaining something that doesn't even make sense, you know, where you're just almost saying it for yourself, or for a development team to listen to and go, oh, yeah. No. One thing I learned at the beginning of TV is there's no such thing as a new idea. Like the Nas line, no idea is original, it's just reinventing the wheel. It led me on to doing what I want, which is guiding myself and going with my own convictions, and working with people who I can look in the eye and they know that they trust me, and that they believe that everything, not believe it, they know that everything I say I believe in. Yeah, that couldn't have happened. So it's because of that slightly negative situation there that I got my first music video, and I learned to apply the bits that I did like and take away.
Again, it's that adversity thing, isn't it?
I don't like being told no to stuff.
Yeah.
You know, if it's stuff that I genuinely want to do, nothing's going to stop me, man.
If I was to say to you approaching festivals, what could you tell me?
Right, so yeah, basically from there, I didn't really have a full direction I wanted to go in. I'd come from factual entertainment, which is real people's stories dressed up in a fun, interesting way. Music videos, as soon as you mentioned that to anyone in broadcast, I might as well have been telling them I was going to work in porn. They'd just be like, music videos. I don't think they remember the heyday where you could get really exciting with concepts and treatments, and you know.
I mean, look at what Michael Jackson was doing before anyone else was
Massive
doing it.
influence in my life. Smooth Criminal alone. That will be my life's testament. If I can ever put together anything as whole, thorough, and covering anyone as talented as Michael Jackson at some point, well, like the Smooth Criminal video did, that would be my life's work.
Where we see like videos had so much value and there was so much going on in terms of creativity, and where there's the budgets available, people can do that. But a lot of times I think, like, if you're just going to do a mediocre video where you're standing in front of a tower block and waving your hands, like, come on, bro. It doesn't take a lot for you to get on your hands and knees and crawl to the camera and
but some people aren't thinking about that. We don't have as many natural performers nowadays as we used to have. People are a little bit caught up with preconceptions. Even thinking back to those open-minded guys in Manchester, as much as they probably would have done it if I'd asked them to crawl on the floor, a lot of people think of this stuff on their own, and that enhances the cameraman's journey or camera ops journey as well, because they're not having to think about this stuff and they can concentrate on other things, and yet you're already giving them natural creativity and uniqueness. Yeah, funnily enough, I do work with people now who so naturally turn it on and so naturally know what they want of their visual, that when I then go and work with someone else that I'm not used to working with, it actually becomes difficult, because I forget and I've taken for granted how much prep comes into lots of people's work. When I'm having to tell people the fundamentals of being an artist, it's like, shit, even if I wasn't doing a video with them, they've got to go up on stage and be flat. Yeah, a bit of a concern. If someone exudes an amount of passion for an idea and they're willing to go the distance like me, yeah, there's an element of treating it like a passion project. You know, the hours I put into most projects don't match the fee that I get for most projects. But it's about that person's intent. It doesn't matter about their name or how big they are or even how far the video is going to push and be seen.
And at this point, we can drop in Jazz Kahina.
What can I say?
Tell us the story.
The girl knows how to, the girl knows how to work. Amazing artist, someone I've massively looked up to for a while. I've been driving Chester P around for a little bit actually, and it ultimately ended up with Boom Bap Festival, where I dropped some of his friends off to. Got chatting with Jazz in person for the first time ever, and she just, she said, I've been wanting to track you down for a while. And all these years later, I know why. She puts in the amount of hours, the amount of OCD, the amount of relentlessness into her projects as me. Jazz and me will talk about, a phone of an era before we decide on buying it. We'll decide on camera movements and what looks best for stuff. We'll talk over scripts. Most of this time isn't being paid for, but because she's putting in as much as me, it makes it just as valuable for both of us. And one thing she's always stuck by is making lasting testaments to her work. In this day and age where a video, even a 500 or grand video, often isn't making its money back on YouTube, it's about that being a lasting testament to your work. So it pays off in other ways. Sometimes money doesn't come back in money form, it comes in other ways.
Yeah, that's important. And you mentioned Boom Bap.
One of the first projects where I felt I'd found my feet. I remember Chester P putting up a post, someone that I've massively looked up to all my life, artist-wise. Yeah, just wordsmith above wordsmiths, man.
100.
What can you say? Like,
can't say nothing, can you?
They created the sound, the vibe, and the feel that I wanted to know more about. I didn't grow up in that exact set of circumstances, but at the same time, just their poetry and their easy description of stuff around them was stuff that I hadn't ever even considered. The guy was up.
He's just got a way with putting pictures and
one of the most valuable hip-hop talents of all time. The pictures he paints.
Yeah, and it's not just UK. It's not just UK. We're talking worldwide.
Yeah, let's make that clear. I don't like the term UK hip-hop.
Yeah, I've never liked it personally.
Pigeonhole stuff.
So when I say,
and that's an American device that we're using as well.
But yeah, so the story of
basically, I messaged Chest. He was looking out for creators and filmmakers, and I just said I'd love to do something together. I showed him my show reel, which actually at this stage I look back is mad basic. And he said, okay, I can see some potential in that. Messaged me back. I was already gobsmacked. It didn't matter at that point if we didn't get to work together. He messaged me. And so, we basically, he introduced this idea of a conceptual album, his first solo album in years. It was called The Past, the post-apocalyptic storyteller. And he'd been co-producing it alongside Django Mancub, another amazingly talented, I won't even just cap him in by saying boom bap producer, he does everything. But they created this concept album, a whole world, something that I wanted to get my teeth stuck into as well, because not only are you painting pictures with your words, but now you're selling it visually as well. Yeah. And he already came in with quite a clear idea of what he wanted to do. And we took a little walk down to this local estate. It was already mad apocalyptic, so perfect. And he was mentioning who might help him out, who might get involved, the vision he has for certain shots. We sat in different places around the location and talked about stuff. And then went back to his yard, and then we talked about things a little bit more. And, I wish I'd actually brought that, because that's still something that I'm very proud of as well. So I made a proper shooting script from that. What you're talking about, what I brought from TV, I did a multi-page shooting script where we worked to all of his ideas and the people that we had and so on. And you tell the storyline through the shooting script, and then when you're on the shoot, you work through it. It tells you what lens you're going to use, what shot. It gives an average idea of the framing and which people are needed, which props are needed. So you've got everything on paper. That's what production work in TV taught me to do. And I've often brought these out for artists, and I don't think many people really appreciate what work goes into those. That alone took a week of work. But I felt so proud giving him that and saying, this is what we're working from, and this is how we're going to conduct it. And then it's a great fail-safe, when you say things go wrong, because you have this sheet to literally cross off things as you go through. And then when you get back home, or even actually whilst you're filming it, and you're watching through the viewfinder and you're thinking, I drew this last week, or and your stuff's coming to fruition, it's coming to life. And not only that, with some of the best in the game, the best in the game in my eyes, He had everyone involved from his circle. His wife was doing special effects. She had a friend lumping in. I had a friend helping me just because he was so gassed that I was doing this project with Chess. People really came together, and he brought in a bunch of people who, ever since that day in 2015, because although it came out in 16 or 17, it was shot in 15, the people that I met on that shoot have been instrumental to me for the rest of my life since. And for that, I'm ever grateful for that experience alone. For the jump up it's taken me on work, but also the jump up in real solid souls that I've met and added an extra creative twist to things in my thinking patterns now. Ever grateful for that, yeah.
So for anyone who wants to check the video, do you want to tell them
Yeah,
what the
check
name is?
out Chester P. Firstly, check out the whole album. Go and get it on Bandcamp, by the way. Don't go Spotify. Make sure you actually fund these artists for their hard work. But yeah, the album's called The Past, with dots in it, so the post-apocalyptic storyteller. And the video that I did is the title track, The Past. You'll be able to find that over on YouTube. Big up JCA as well, and all the other boys that were there. I had Nick Niven, who's now gone on to great fame aside of EastEnders and Return of the Foot Soldier and that, and his own internet fame. You know, he was on site there and he lent an extra set of eyes and really helped me put some of the sequences together. And yet didn't ask for any fame off the back of that as well. So, you know, he's a loudly spoken guy, but not self-centered at all, and, you know, not all about himself either. So respect Nick. Yeah. So yeah, it just built up from there. You know, that gave me confidence to know that I could execute a plan. It gave me sort of a creative edge as well, because someone had listened to my, even imagine that, the most creative person who paints pictures with words, and yet he gave me the time of day to listen to my ideas and work out how, and that's a big thing in business, or in art in itself as well, life.
From everything you're saying, I'm kind of getting the impression that a lot of what you did with the video, the music videos and everything was a passion thing, a passion project most of the time.
Yeah.
So how are you surviving? What were you
Right.
juggling jobs?
So it kind of weakens the cause in some ways, because you do too many things, people aren't going to see you as a strong light in one of them. But I love variety. I've got a different want for life now compared to a lot, because, hey, none of this could be here possibly. So I just want to enjoy it for as much as it's worth. It doesn't have to be money related. That's why the passion projects are allowed to exist. Most are paid, but versus the hours done, no, I'd probably be earning more at McDonald's. But then there are other bits and pieces, like many people know, you do your corporates to top those up. I do work across the board with other self-employed and small business owners. I've done lots of dance videos, choreography-based stuff, help people to do adverts and boost up their business, all of which I can apply skills from broadcast, funny enough. Even just something as simple as learning how to mic someone up properly, or getting them to talk to the camera, not to you above the camera. All these things do come in. I need to get better now, and one thing I am doing is actually putting packages together, so that I'm not just putting everything in at one cost and everyone expecting the world, you know? There'll be something for everyone. You'll have a basic package, a standard package, and a deluxe one.
So again, I'm going to ask you to look at that camera and sell yourself.
I've been trying to do this lately. I've been to a few business networking meetings, and I still haven't got it down to 2 minutes. But basically, hi, I'm Jordan Grant Films, self-employed freelance filmmaker from London. I specialise in everything. So whether you want a music video, an advert for your business that shows you off in the finest of lights, or even just ongoing social media, troubleshooting and problem solving, I'm that guy. Feel free to give me a shout. You can check out my stuff on Jordan Grant Films, and soon jordangrantfilms.com. Boom. I feel like I'm on Live and Kicking. Yeah, that wasn't the best pitch, but anyway, go check out my stuff. Just type the name and make it happen, man.
And how many videos have you done for Jazz Kahina?
Jazz, we've done 4 or 5 now. Everything from mad storylines all the way through to slightly more colourful, just simplistic effects.
Would that be the single artist that you've done the most videos for at the moment?
I had the great benefit of lots of music video artists, music video projects that I've worked on with artists, I've worked with 4 times.
Again, that says a lot about you, because people keep coming back.
Yeah,
right?
no doubt. And these people, you know, bless you, like shout me from the rooftops when they do so. And even just the cosign of coming back for work is something special. But, you know, if you want literal, clear examples of stuff, yeah, like to come back and then to also shout about me. I think I told you before, one of the proudest moments I had is artist who hasn't done loads of videos before. He got his video and he came back with some feedback and he was like, bro, the video is amazing. I just love the way you did this, this and this. I've shown my mum, you know, so imagine, you know, big artist that's making stuff that for everyone to view, but his proudest moment again was his mum seeing it, you know. And he said, I've shown my mum, and she said, what fantastic work. Wow, you all did that together. And some things are more than money, aren't they, man?
So talking about some things are more than money, When we were having a conversation at one point, you said that Chester P gave you some advice.
Yeah, yeah.
What is that piece of advice?
I'm at this stage in my career, so I've made this, what I felt was a banging video for him. He was very proud of it. He said some really nice stuff about it. There's other work coming in at the time. I didn't tie into this before. You were saying about festivals. One great way to get your legs is get into festivals. Take you and your camera, apply to loads of pages. You know, there's festivals coming up left, right and centre. Type up to their press departments and just ask for a press pass. They'll normally give you a camping for free. Sometimes they might even offer to pay you what your rates are. Make sure you tell them. But in essence, it's a great place to get a dense amount of training. You sometimes got 60 acts, you know, all other things going on. So you can learn how to film music. You can learn how to film activities and so on. It was how I learned the craft as well. Like even when stage management go, no, sorry, the pit's full, or no cameramen, or no camera ops or whatever, no people. I then learned to go, okay, no problem, and walk backwards and walk around stage curtains and get in backstage places, or walk in with an artist and pretend to be their crew, that sort of thing. You know, it teaches you to be resourceful. But sorry, to get back and answer your question, after doing all these festivals and bits and pieces like that, I've gone to Boom Bap. Chess had brought me on to do a bit of driving for him at the time. I'm still friends with his friends that we met on the shoot. And yeah, basically, I decided I want to do this full time. I'm going to make a real go of this. I'm still juggling part-time jobs at the time, which I'd kind of taken on as a result of my head injury. So less hours, less intensity on your head and that sort of thing. And then as my stamina built up, I can start adding my film work onto this. So I'm doing part-time jobs and I'm turning up to the part-time job having only gone to sleep at 5:30 in the morning, had 3 hours sleep and then go to the job. And people are seeing me like bloodshot eyes and tired, but keep going, Jordan, keep going, keep going. And I was making all that happen at the time. And then at some stage, I remember, I think after I'd driven Chess to a show somewhere, he said, mate, I was telling him I wanted to make this a full-time thing. And he said, mate, there will be moments of desperation and there'll be moments of tightness. But when you're on your brokest and last dollar or something to that effect, eventually the money will find you, you know, survival money. I'm not talking about affluence, I'm talking about survival money will find its way to you, you know. How would certain other people have existed all their lives otherwise, you know? And I took that and ran with it. I was like, well, I'm only earning 10K at the part-time job. That's just about keeping me surviving anyway. Technically, all I need to do is earn that, maybe even a little bit less. Filming, I can do this. And so as soon as my job, I took the moment where they reduced my pay when it should have been going up, and it was already only on 10K. It was at a school. I gave the head teacher the strongest letter of resignation ever. Said goodbye.
At this point, I just want to add, like, obviously, I've been watching a lot of his videos and everything. So if there's any artists out there that really need a good videographer and someone who's prepared to get, like, stuck in there with you with the direction and with the storyboarding and everything, then obviously hit up Jordan on his pages, on his, is it a website that you have?
Yeah, website's coming up very soon.
Yeah.
I'm putting pressure on myself to get that out now.
Jordan Grant Films, just hit him up, man. It's like, you might kind of be impressed with the prices and everything as well, but I think you'll be very impressed with the work ethic and the end result. So make sure you hit him up on that.
Some kind words, thank you, man.
You're the videographer, but now you got to get your business in.
Yeah, the business.
Well, you know,
I found in life actually that artists and creatives, the talent as such, doesn't always necessarily mean that people seeing the most success, whatever your perception of success or type of success is, whether it's financial comfortability, visibility or being seen. I think years ago you possibly could be just a talented person and somehow be spotted, whereas now it doesn't happen as easily. You know, there's a lot more stuff clouding people's views, a lot more ways for people to receive you and so on. And so sometimes someone with business sense but not creative sense or creative skill can turn out more money out of this from something creative than someone with creativity. And so I've been trying to take on as much knowledge and advice as possible, realizing where I have to cut stuff off, strengthen other limbs of the business, but also format stuff. People don't want work. You see, like, for example, when I pitch to the camera there, and people's ears switch off to that kind of stuff very quickly. They just want ease of process. You know, if you want your boiler fixed, I always use this example, you want your boiler fixed, you don't want to listen to, I had to fix this and I had to do that, and then I tried to do that. And you just want to know, what's it going to cost? And that doesn't necessarily meld with low budget projects and me giving my all and being mad creative if someone doesn't want to give that same return, because then you're just slaving yourself to make something happen for someone and not pricing it very well and not taking respect of your craft. But like I was saying before, if you can make price plans where everyone knows what they're paying for stuff, they know what they get with it, you're not having to over explain that too much. There's a service for everyone, so you're not ever turning away business, you know. Now, okay, I'm sorry if someone can't afford more than the basic package, but hey, use that as your next point of aspiration to save for something like that.
Yeah, I mean, because at the end of the day, it's not your problem that they can't afford it. They need to raise their standards in order to be able to come to that.
I've always made it my problem. I've regularly make it my problem, and also because you put your name on something, you still want it to do the best. Some of my best videos, versus some of my not so well received videos, have probably come in at a very similar price, and even if they were £100 apart, what did that £100 really justify?
All I'm saying is, at the end of the day, like, if you want to buy something, there's a price attached, right? And if you can't afford it, then don't look at that price.
And you wouldn't do that in a shop.
Right, you wouldn't do that in a shop. So respect the architects, respect the people that put the work in, and you know, if they respect you enough as an artist and a creative mind, they might even turn around and go, what can you afford? And then the conversation opens up.
I try not to use that question too much now, because the way that people's minds seem to be wired in this day and age is, when you ask that question, is how much can I charge you? When I'm using that term, I use it as a shortcut to stop us talking about development and all the wondrous ideas you have that ultimately aren't going to get done, because we're talking, you know, we're still at talking stages of what your money is. So yeah, that's a really good shortcut to get to the to what do they call it? To get to the crunch. But at the same time, when I ask that question, maybe it's the way I ask it, but a lot of people run at that point.
What I'm trying to get at is more the aspect of it being, you know, if someone asks about a price and then you look at it and they can't afford it and they make it clear they can't afford it, then you, as the director or videographer, may look at the project and go, you know what, working with you is going to benefit me. So let's discuss this.
Yeah, and that's another thing that's been taught to me in training as well. Okay, if it's not going to pay in financial terms, what are you going to do for me? You know, and that may sound like an awkward question, and it's not something that's naturally in my makeup, you know. But at the same time, it's a realistic point, you know, because at the end of the day, even if you're just talking about credits of time, not money, but units of time that could be elsewhere, like spent elsewhere or whatnot, then you've got to be realistic about that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
I mean,
so if it is coming back with this person, oh, I've got a premium account and I can plug it like this, or, you know, I've got extra ventures, or much like when people say, oh, I'll come back, do something cheap and I'll come back to you for more. And I've got stronger at that now. It's like, no, pay proper price first time around. And if you come back, we can work out your reduction after, you know.
Obviously, I see that you put a lot of work in. You've done quite a lot of videos that I've seen that I didn't even realize was you doing the videos.
Oh, nice.
But at some point, in my mind, I'm thinking, why have you not blown up yet? Why do you think yourself that you've not blown up yet?
It's a good question, very good question. I think whatever I answer this now is going to give me a little wake-up call and make me push on with it after as well.
And that's why
I make myself visible. A couple of people have said, you're the go-to guy in the UK hip-hop game at times, you know? And from people that mean something to me as well. You know who you are. I think it's about further investment, not in kit, not in skills. It's about making sure that your shit can be seen. Much like I said, that someone in marketing or sales knows how to sell water that someone has already got, you know, water to a whale or whatever the Jay-Z lyric is. No, it's the fact that I need to put now further investment, not in getting a new camera every few years or whatever, or the technology side of things, but the investment in being seen. Whether that be, and again, I'm not advising this, but whether that be yellow page postings or getting into business meetings that I am now, then understanding what sides of your business make actual money. Remember that I project the poor, not so money-making side of my business. Maybe I need to focus on actually pushing out the money-making side of things.
I'm glad you said that, because that interestingly leads on to the next thing, which is basically you, as a videographer, had the options to basically go into the grime scene and the drill scene.
Yeah.
And so, but you've stayed with the underground hip-hop scene.
I'm picky about doing things to the fullest and doing things right. And I'm not trying to throw shame on a whole scene or anything like that by any means. It still occurs in hip-hop as well. The few people that I've massively enjoyed working with are the people, like we've ascertained, that go on and don't want to stop because they are perfectionists as well. And with something like grime, there's a format to it. Hip hop got a little bit like that when it started stagnating years later on the sort of YouTube generation where the street videos came out. You know, I found most grime artists that I've chatted with, firstly, I have to like a track to be able to want to work on it. I'm not going to work on something that I'm not passionate about musically. If I find something that I like, you speak with the artist and want to take a different angle on stuff, you want to get creative, you want to do something that's different to everyone else. I don't want dogs on leashes pulling towards the camera. I don't want loads of motocross bikes non-stop or even just standard tower block shots. It's all been done, it's all been killed. And I guess what I would like to do is, although the music is going to stay the same, I want to take the visual somewhere else. And there haven't been many people that have engaged with that sort of idea. It's too scary a thought for them to do something different. So in that case, I'd rather work on some music that I'm maybe not as passionate about. I like rock music, but not like hip hop. I'd rather go and work on a rock project where they go, yeah, Jordan, you want to add this scene to it, or, you know, do this or that? Yeah, go on.
It's the creativity.
Whereas I do that in grime and they go, no one's going to see us as hard or that.
Yeah.
No, I think creatively, man.
Yeah.
We were saying about artists that don't know how to be creative or turn it on for the camera straight away. You were talking about lying on the floor to get a different angle, give the artist a different look. You think that would work in this scenario nowadays? Not for most people, because more than ever, kids have got more cocksure and confident and can't be told. Okay, that is the sign of all childhood and all youth. But now it's actually at a point where there is no reasoning, I find at times, where an adult and all their multiple years of knowledge and wisdom, because this generation have the internet and they've got everything at their fingertips, and also they're hiding away from quite a lot of it behind their closed doors.
Yeah, of course. You know, I think we've touched on pretty much everything, but what I want is to make sure that by the time this is done, people come to you.
Right.
And, you know, so what is the thing that you want to promote the most and that you want people to come to you for?
It's not a direct promotion of me because, you know, your choice is where your choice is, but I want to promote change, not just in filmmaking, but the creative arts in general. Something I've touched on lightly in other podcasts is the fact that art, although a lot of people see it as an intrusion in art to put a price to stuff, and therefore is the antithesis of what art is, I know just as many people where art is their only resource to survival. And I think that people need to take that a bit more seriously. The times have changed, the wheel has been reinvented now. We can't just put stuff out there and expect people to lap it up or come to you. It's horrible thinking I have to project to sell yourself. But if you're going to do that, then at least value your art in another way, which is the monetary or financial or respect-based return. Respect doesn't pay food. And I know so many starving artists right now, but art will always continue. Now, if you're an artist that just wants to continue like that, by all means, continue. I'm not trying to sully the combination of money and art. But I also know lots of artists that play on that theme and then also complain about not having any money, but then also complain about not wanting to work a Tesco's job or work at a counter somewhere. So what do? The only thing you can do from the inside, rather than bitch and moan about it, is push on and make sure that your art is seen as valuable, more valuable than something that can be done in a binary fashion. If I go and fix your boiler, I'll be charging you 100 and something an hour before parts. What are you charging for all the years that you've put into your craft, whether it be drawing, filmmaking, designing stuff, speaking on stuff? It's all your strength. There's no, one thing I haven't ever touched on, and actually Rodney P said this once as well, you don't get no pensions with this shit, man. Don't get no pensions with this. So you can let people think you're turning over good money, even taking, you know, £500,000 show fees or whatnot. But at the end of the day, you've got no pension coming off the back of that. And people need to understand that artists do it for the there and now. But now we need to make it long term. And other people won't respect your art unless you respect it fully as well. Now, if that means putting a proper fee to it, we'll up everyone's game.
And there is no middle ground for this.
And that's me. I'm not focused on money. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sitting here talking about how to up myself. But that's one thing that I hear over and over again is it's hard. People don't know how long it's taken me to get here. Well, I've just given you some keys to that, man.
And I think that's a perfect place to end this. So, guys, a long interview with Jordan Grant. Some of you probably don't even know who he is, but it doesn't matter
Now
because, now you know. Okay, he's a really interesting character with a big story. He's literally been told he was going to be dead by the next morning, and he's gone on to do so much more. Okay, so this is a guy that obviously I'm going to be pushing. If anyone comes to me and says, do you know a videographer? This is the guy I'm going to be sending you to, along with a couple of other people that I know. So do me a favor, guys. Go and research on Jordan Grant. He's also done something with Killer Keller recently, so make sure you watch out for that as well. And yeah, just go and support Jordan Grant on his social media pages, for which I'm going to be putting the links in the description below once I've spoken to him and got them off him. So guys, thank you for watching again. Go follow Jordan Grant, and if you get the opportunity to, obviously subscribe to what we're doing as well. Thank you very much. Peace.
Yeah.